2021.
This
I
conference
was
will
going
now
to
be
tell you that
recorded.
this was a hybrid meeting, but it is not. Pursuant with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Section GLC 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and/or watch the meeting may do so either online via the town's online video demand broadcast or cable television on 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455 and enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. This phone number will only be active during the public meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can have adequately access the proceeds in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. That
This
said,
conference is no longer being recorded.
Steve, I'd like to read the
Sure. Statement for public hearings.
Yeah.
In the interest of saving time,
This
the Sturbridge
conference will now be
Conservation Commission
recorded.
will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or within a 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge wetland bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in, you don't have to worry about it.
Becky, where would you like to go until 6:15?
We have some things we can do, but I just want to state for the record too, that I have a Mullen form from Steve Halterman and Dave Barnacle, because I missed the last meeting. They did both watch the last meeting, so they can participate in the hearings.
Great.
All right, so yeah, we do have a few minutes. We have a few, get back to you, things further down the agenda that we can do while we're waiting for the hearing time to start. First, if you want to start with number 13.
Number 13, that's a
Yep.
lucky number.
So this is 55 Bennett's Road, a request for certificate of compliance, DEP file number 300-969. So we did receive a request for that. I went out and did a site visit, and I did ask the engineer. They had submitted an as-built plan. It didn't reflect the as-built conditions on ground, and there was some replacement plantings that didn't appear to have been planted, and there also appeared to be a few changes with trees that hadn't come down, that were supposed to come down. Not a big deal, but we just asked that that's reflected to be accurate of what's on ground. So we're waiting to hear back from them. So at this time, I'd recommend no action on the item until they come back with the accurate as-built plan and see what the conditions are.
Great.
All right?
Any conversation?
Makes sense.
All in agreement?
Yep.
David?
In favor.
So number 14 is another request for certificate of compliance. This was continued from March. This was an older permit. It is for 180 New Boston Road, DEP file number 300-4 460. This was a subdivision property project. This lot, the request came in as part of a real estate transaction. It was during winter, and it appeared that there was riverfront restoration that was required that wasn't done. So we did continue that, so that way the new buyer and the previous buyer worked it out, met with the landscape contractor over there to go over what needed to be done. I did go out and do a site inspection when it was completed, and then I went back out last week, and everything was growing and stabilized. They had to do some just seeding as well as shrubs. So everything was up and growing, so I don't have any concerns, and I'd recommend approving that. This would be a partial for 180 New Boston Road. The original filing was for 178, which had 5 different lots on it. So it's a partial specifically for 180 New Boston Road. Lot E as shown on the plan, and then it did have some perpetual conditions. Usually the typical things: no pesticide, herbicide use, no additional alteration of riverfront area. There was no removing or work to the stone walls in the property, and then also that the rest of the area was left as wildlife habitat unaltered.
Okay.
What's the benefit of a partial in this case?
Well, if you do a complete, then you're signing off on everything that was part of the project. We were only asked for this specific lot, and we didn't check the other ones. So they had like 5 lots on it. We had one come in a few years ago for one of them. If we did a complete, it would close all the other ones off. If we checked it and we knew it was okay, then you could do the whole thing, but.
Any other questions? All in favor, Eric?
Eric Gaspar, in favor.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, do we need to declare our names anymore? Probably not, huh?
Probably not, no.
All right, good.
Well,
Just, what do you mean? What?
Well, maybe we
you
do.
may. I mean, just because
Okay.
it's
This
still,
is still a virtual meeting.
All right.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Steve Halderman,
That's a
I'm
good
in
point.
favor.
Ed Goodwin, I'm in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
All right. Becky, what do you? What?
Who made the motion?
Oh,
Do we need a motion
Motion to approve
to
the,
approve?
yeah.
I'll second it. That's the answer.
there you
There
go.
you
That's what I thought.
God, next they're gonna have us
Town
revote.
meeting.
Now we should,
Hey, it's been a while since we've sat in the same room, so
very
Yeah, I was-
disorienting.
it's gonna take us a while.
All right, so I think we have to vote again because we can't vote before the motion.
All right,
All
David?
right, it's not a public hearing.
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister
Stephen?
in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Steve Halderman in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Great.
Aaron keeping us in line once again.
Give that woman a raise.
Want to go to 15?
Sure. The emergency authorization, Hall Road culvert. This is for Sturbridge DPW. This is to ratify the issued emergency authorization. I worked on this with Ed. What it was, there's a sinkhole that appeared in Hall Road over the culvert. It's a corrugated metal pipe. What they want to do, they added a plate over it for the time being, but what they are going to do, they eventually will come back to replace the pipe, but right now they just want to put couplings on it. So they submitted a plan. I issued an emergency authorization with conditions for that work. It's my understanding that it's going to occur this week. That's it. I gave you a copy of the emergency authorization to look at if you wanted.
Motion to approve?
So moved. Steve Halderman.
Second, Dave Barnacle.
David Barnacle seconds. Any discussion?
Um,
Hearing-
Do you think that we should send a thank you note to the Beaver for pointing out that we had a weak pipe on, going under the road?
I think, the next one is the thank you note.
Yeah.
It's a beaver deceiver. Coming up next.
Trapping.
Actually,
Eric, how do you vote?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Halderman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Great. All right. And the next one.
All right, so this is an emergency authorization. Oh, I didn't mean to write trapping on there, sorry. This is breaching. This was a beaver dam breach. So this is not the same location as the culvert issue. This is a little bit further down the road near OFS. There's a pump station over there. So it was a newer beaver dam that was being built right up against the culvert for the road, and it was starting to flood up towards the pump station there. So we gave them authorization, same thing, this is to ratify afterwards, to alleviate the flooding caused by that. So they did breach that beaver dam. And actually, DPW came in today, and after the rain events, the beaver have come back and they're rebuilding it. So they are actually looking for emergency approval from Board of Health to trap them out of there. It's just not a good location for the beaver dam, and there's not enough water behind where the dam is in order to put in a flow device like we've been doing. You have to have a certain amount of water behind it for the flow devices to work, so.
So moved, Eric Gaspar.
All right.
Second, Steve Alderman.
Any discussion?
So what do they do with the beavers when they trap them? Are they?
I think they have to dispose of them, yeah. But we don't have to,
Where the road was flooding, how do we know that the beaver weren't trying to help us out and keep the road from flooding? The road was running over with water, right?
Yes.
And the beaver put the dam in?
no, the pump station,
Okay,
not the road yet.
all right, okay.
Nice try, though.
All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Right, Steve Alderman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Great.
Goodbye, Beavers.
4 for 4.
So we've got 3 more minutes. We can do the minutes of 5/18/21?
Motion to approve the minutes of May 18th.
Do you have your agenda?
Did the Mullen, I'm okay.
6 plus 6:15.
Okay to second that, vote on it. That's what I thought. I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Alderman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
I have no problem with the minutes, but I don't feel comfortable about voting for minutes that I was not in attendance.
Okay. That's fine.
I'm okay with it because I sat there and watched every 2-hour meeting when I could have been doing something more fun. I can't believe I said that one. It was fun. He was,
Becky, one more, quickie?
you were fun. I loved it.
Can go do committee updates real quick if you want. We have 2 more
Okay.
minutes.
Yeah.
Lakes will definitely take all up to those 2 minutes.
CPA, we have not met, so that's my report. We have not met since the last meeting.
Trails next week.
Trails next week?
All right.
I understand that there's a hat being passed around for money to get you a motorized scooter for the trails, is that
No, I
true?
rejected that.
Did you?
authorization. Potential for human damage.
I think there's some Guinness in the back.
And I'll run along behind it.
Becky, we are at 6:15. Turning over and going to 6:15, we have 76 South Shore Drive, RDA, installation of a permanent floating raft. Peter Nemo is on the line. Hi, Peter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, so I'll just start. I'll give a quick overview, and if Peter wants to add anything, he can add that in there.
Well, we want to get him,
Did you hear me?
We're not getting any of Peter's audio.
Yeah, it's really quiet in here.
yeah.
We're trying to turn up your speakers there, Peter.
It's coming out of that. No, these.
Is that any better?
Say something, Peter.
Yeah, is that any better?
Oh, yeah.
My microphone is on. Is that any better?
Yep, you're all set, Peter. Was our setup here.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
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 There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Becky.
All right, so this is an RDA. We do have receipt of the legal ad and all the abutter notifications for the record. So Mr. Mimo is working with the DEP Waterway Program for his Chapter 91 license for the notice of intent he submitted for the revetment work he's doing along the shore there. And as part of that process, he's including his dock in that. He currently has local harbor master approval for seasonal dock structure he has out there that he's had historically for many years. He has a ramp that comes off the shore and a floating dock out there. So working with the Watersway program, he can include that seasonal structure. He wants to leave the floating dock part in the water year-round and get approval from them and not have to come back to the harbor master every year for that. So he's including that in the Chapter 91 program. And as part of that, they request a negative determination from the commission on that, for that structure. So this is a structure that Mr. Mimos had permitting for to have in there for his time on the lake. He can tell you how long it's been afterwards. So in order to get something from the Conservation Commission, he's filed the request for determination of applicability. So currently, the system that he has wheels on it, comes in and out. That structure will be placed by a floating dock with the weights, and he would keep that in year-round. So they're just weights, they're not pilings driven in, et cetera. So the dock anchors, the weights, would not appear to be a significant change from what he's already doing out there. And it would be what I consider a de minimis impact on the land underwater. So I would recommend issuing the negative number 3. So that's under the Wetlands Protection Act. And then under our local bylaw, which would be separate from what they would need anyways, it would be a positive number 5. So you'd be giving approval for that structure out there. So and just as a reminder, typically for seasonal structures, that isn't something that, it's something that goes to the Board of Selectmen that we comment on for them, unless they have some type of permanent structure they're putting in, permanent pilings in the water, or some type of permanent alteration to the bank. So they're not doing either of that here, so.
Makes sense. All right. Any questions, Eric?
None. Seems like it's less of an impact over time, so.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel the same way. I'm fine.
I agree.
I have 3 questions. The first one has to do with Peter and Becky, perhaps. Peter, on the form for the DEP, you did not fill out whether your home was private home was built before 85 or after 85. 2 separate questions. Should not one of those 2 have been checked off? It's on the very front of the application.
Which page was that?
I think it's page 1, Peter. It's right at the very beginning, where it asks a series of questions with boxes to be checked off.
On the RDA, under determinations?
Yep,
So that would be question B1,
there you go.
but I don't see the asking of when it was built.
It asks 2 different questions. Was the house built before 85 or was the house built after 85? And there was no check mark on any one of them. So maybe,
I'm not seeing that on the application for an RDA. I'm not seeing that.
I don't have it with me.
So it might be 3A, and that's
Oh.
for scope of alternatives with Riverfront, where they ask if it was before or after
Yes.
August 1st, 1996.
Right,
That might
Yep.
be, yeah, so that wouldn't apply for,
it would not apply.
right.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Question.
The house was built in before 1970,
Okay,
and it's been so. But that didn't. I didn't check it because I didn't feel it did apply.
okay. My error, sorry. Question number 2, how are you going to be able to adjust for the length of rope going down to your buckets of cement on the ground, which I agree is going to cause less disturbance to the ground,
Yeah.
with the cove fluctuating in its depth periodically? For example, right now, the water level in South Pond is particularly high, but by
Yeah.
late August, it's going to be particularly low.
Yes. The Harbor Master regulations actually indicate for rafts that are anchored by with two anchors, that there's enough slack in them to allow the dock to move with if the water level goes up or down.
Okay.
So that's why it's still that 20-foot wrap. I'm hearing an echo. I hope you're not.
No, you're fine.
No, you're fine.
The 20-foot long raft will stay out in the water about 20 to 25 feet, so it'll be away from shore. It has to be off the shore so that it will essentially float up as the ice pack surrounds it. It will float up in that ice pack. So the anchors will have a sufficient chain on them to allow some movement, and it will still be in my riparian zone.
Okay, good, thank you. My last question has nothing to do with this particular operation. Did you in fact ever check into Cotani Aster for your side slope?
Yes. The planting type?
No, it's on the slope going down to the water?
Yes.
You had mentioned that you were looking for whatever kinds of plants might be appropriate for it, and I had suggested Cotani Aster.
Yeah, I did look into that, it didn't pan out well with Bemis. This is a sticky point here, just for a second. We put a hostas in originally, and then we put a revision in that put a better plant in there based on you wanted us to look at other plants. So we went back and we picked another plant, and we put it on a revision of our NOI documentation. The one that you asked for, they did not agree that that was either available or that it would be sustained there.
Oh, okay.
So they gave me another one to put on the drawing. I submitted it a week before the NOI vote, and for some reason it didn't show. That rev did not show up in the NOI.
Okay.
That was a small technicality. I didn't want to deal with that until we get going on this. That I'm willing to put something else there besides hostas. But right now the NOI was been filed and recorded with hostas. And that was a miss, I think, on the town's part, because I gave a new drawing and it didn't get recorded on the order of conditions.
Well, if it was an error on the town's part, I'm sorry I brought it back up.
Right, that's why I started off by saying I can't believe we're talking about this during an RDA on the dock. But
Thank you,
so
Peter.
now it's out. It's out. But I did check into that, and I did change to another planting. And I will put another one in there. I'll put a letter, a small change in letter. I think that'll be sufficient once I get going.
Stephen, anything?
If-
You have anything?
Nope. I'm fine.
Nothing? Peter, what safety hazards does this create in the middle of winter when the snows are on the ground?
It creates a zero safety hazard because it has a place for the skaters to sit and put their skates on and off. But it's still within my area off my shoreline that we use, and I don't think anyone's going to run by it with a snowmobile or a ATV or anything. I think it's just going to sit in the ice.
So you, say again, how am I going to see that? If I decide to go up there and use my snowmobile, not
Yeah.
around the lake, how am I going to see that?
It is about, I believe about 6 or 8 inches of it will be above the ice pack. It's meant to rise up. When the ice pack affects it, it rises up. So it will just be like a dock in the water, but it'll be a dock on the ice. So it won't be something you can trip over. You'll be able to see it.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept.
I think we got to close the public hearing. right?
Butters.
Yeah.
We want to, yeah.
-3, +5.
Yeah, we're gonna check for butters.
I beg your pardon?
We're check.
Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 76 South Shore Drive RDA? Is there anyone on the public line?
Period.
Okay, I
Motion.
move we close the hearing.
And second, Eric Gaspar.
Any discussion? Nope. Hearing none? All in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve Halterman in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor?
Stephen Chittister in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Okay.
Now, I'll make a motion for a negative determination number 3 and a positive number 5 with approval.
Eric Gaspar, second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for your support on this.
Have a good summer, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, we are a couple minutes ahead of time. Anything?
Nope, we're
Nope.
right on.
Or 2 minutes past.
Oh.
Yeah, so the next, right, we put in the discussion on the
Oh, yeah,
enforcement order,
all right.
so, yeah.
Pine Lake RV Management Service, SB LLC, enforcement order for Pine Lake RV Resort, 30 River Road, DEP file number 300-1021. Okay,
So, yep, I believe we have the representatives on here. So just quickly, we did discuss this at the last meeting, because we did have the 2 public hearings, and we had discussion about the enforcement order. The board is looking for information on how the enforcement order is going to be fully complied with.
right. Okay, we have,
We got George.
George is there.
Scott's here, not on camera. You don't want us to see your face, Scott?
Let me try. There we go. I think I got it now.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Good evening. You guys are meeting in person. That's nice.
Dry run.
Yeah, we're
John?
practicing.
Very nice.
How do you want to start it up, Becky? You want to give?
Yeah, I just said, discussed at the last meeting, and you guys are looking for information from them on how they plan
Right.
to fully comply with the enforcement order.
Right, so,
So, Scotty, what do you got for us? I guess that would be the question.
George, you want me to start, or? You can start, Scott. I can handle it. First of all, I want to report to the commission that Mr. Moreau is right now halfway across the country on a plane out to Arizona on an emergency that he had to take care of. So he asked me to convey that to you right off the top. I'm happy to discuss. I did have a long meeting with him and Scott. We discussed this at quite length, and hopefully we have something to report, but hopefully we can get to the end of this process. You want me to start, Mr. Chair, or would you like Scott to talk about the applications?
Well, we got to wait on the applications, because those are public hearings. So we put the enforcement order first, so we could kind of have that discussion first, and then we can go into the public hearings to start talking about the applications, but we should keep the applications in their public hearing times.
Okay, so I've reviewed I'll start, Scott, and you can jump in if there's issues through the chair. I spoke with Mr. Moreau and Scott. We reviewed the order, we reviewed the work and the progress at the site. Scott's gone out there and done some more measurements out there. We're pleased to report that after a very rainy weekend, the site was discharging very, very clean. Virtually no turbidity, under 5 on most of the places. So the site is the improvements that have been done over the last year and a half have been very effective. So I know that Mr. Moe is very pleased with that. I'm hoping that the commission is also pleased with that. We have those two letters of intent that's still procedurally out there. We have an application to amend the order of conditions, which would basically bring the existing order of conditions up to current levels, at least so that it would incorporate all of the improvements that have been done in the last year that followed the last enforcement order. We also have, Scott's got a new notice of intent out there, which is designed to finalize the site, bring it up to snuff with the last bit of improvements, some tree plantings, the discharge number 6, and of course the stream bed. I've discussed at great length with my client about on-site and off-site work. We have proposed, as the commission knows, on-site stream bed, hand mitigation, so basically rakes, shovels, and buckets, cleaning out the stream bed. We discussed last meeting, I discussed whether or not that could continue down past or onto the town's right-of-way where the where the stream leaves the site and crosses under the roadway. My client's willing to do that. My client actually has expressed to me and has authorized me to say that we can carry that exact protocol off-site down onto the Old Sturbridge Village property if they give us the permission, and that during the mitigation efforts on-site, we can do the same stream bed, hand manual cleanup on Old Sturbridge Village from the property line across the public right-of-way onto Old Sturbridge Village down to the area where it is intercepted by that utility easement, the power lines. And I'm hoping that would be acceptable. The stream bed would be clean in that area, basically from on our site, across the public right-of-way, all the way down to the utility easements. And we use the same protocol that Scott's laid out in his his notice of intent for the future work. And I'm hoping that would be acceptable to the commission for the off-site mitigation. Scott can go into detail as to what we've done, why we know it's working. We have, the site is crystal clean right now. The discharges after this weekend, water's running at below 5 NTUs, which is you're probably not going to find that almost anywhere with the rains we just had. The site is working. All of the BMPs are working. A few minor adjustments that need to be done. That's part of the notice of intent. And I think this commission can be very proud of its work. I know my client is very proud of his work. I know Scott should be of theirs. So I'm going to ask the commission their thoughts on that, but that's the best I can report to the commission.
That's it?
Unless the commission has questions, happy
Could
to.
you explain to me how that position is different than the one you brought us at the last meeting?
Well, we weren't going off-site on our notice of intent. So we are off-site now. If Old Sturbridge Village gives us the permission to enter onto their property, we will continue that stream bed protocol off-site
Including the
on Old
pond?
Sturbridge Village property.
Including the pond?
The pond's not on that property. That's further downstream.
He said they're going to stop at the power lines.
Yeah. Mr. Barnacle, we'll start at your end.
From what I can see, it's time to go to legal counsel for the town, because 2 weeks ago, this body took a vote that specifically indicated if the enforcement order was not going to be complied with, then they would move this to legal action. And it sounds like there is not going to be an enforcement order movement. Therefore, I see no recourse for us as a board.
Stephen?
Yeah, so I think the problem is that by stating that they will address off-site impacts, but only to a certain point without any kind of evaluation, that the whole gist of this is that we don't have an evaluation of what the actual impacts are off-site. So without that, we don't know how far these impacts go and what needs to be done to potentially mitigate them. So I can't agree to let them arbitrarily say that they're going to, address some off-site impacts, but not all of them. So I have to agree with David that it doesn't sound like we have what we need.
Eric?
So I'll have a little bit different take. I appreciate that there was an acknowledgement of the off-site in general, because that has definitely been a movement from where we were. The reality is, unless we are given access to the pond, which at this point we don't have access to the pond, I don't know that there's much that we really can physically do or do through action to Pine Lake without being given access by the property owner. So if we do find that there's a violation or there's impact down the road, or we're given access, then, obviously the property owner is on the hook for the impact. And if they choose at that point to go back against Pine Lake, well, that's their choice, but that's their harm. So, that's just my thoughts. I know it's probably going to be the minority point on this side, but, there's clearly impact on the public access way, on the Sturbridge Village property, that needs to be addressed. That absolutely needs to be addressed. We are speculating that there is impact further downstream, but without access to that, or, and if there's a way to compel that, we can talk about that. But, without access to that, I don't know that we can go any further than that.
Well, actually, is that it?
Yep, that's what I have.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that they're addressing the stream off-site. I did an assessment of it and submitted some photographs and a report on the condition of the stream and the amount of sand that I saw in a couple of places. But I think that we need an assessment from somebody that would be more thorough. Mine was just to say, this is a mess down here and we can't let it be taken off the table by Scott. So I think that we need an assessment and a recommendation of exactly how to clean it up and how far it should be cleaned up. And then we need to monitor that to determine that it is, whether or not it has been cleaned up to the point that an assessment would indicate. So going in and just taking out some of the sand and say, hey, we did it, is something we want to avoid. As far as the pond, on multiple occasions, I hope I'm not talking too loud, on multiple occasions, I have seen a tremendous plume of sediment, of siltation coming out of that pipe, and Becky has seen the same on multiple occasions, that there has definitely been an impact. The extent of that impact and what should be done about it is another issue. And if this commission so decides, we can take enforcement. I hate to do this, but we could take enforcement against the owner of that pond, and then we would definitely have a access right to go in there and have an assessment done. My thinking on that is that, okay, this fellow that owns the pond now, he's forgiving everybody, and it's okay with him that the potential damage to that pond. But we need to look at the long term. We can't just look at what's going on, what an owner of a piece of a resource area says right now. We need to look at the long term, and we don't want somebody to buy that someday and say, geez, I wonder why there's nothing living in here. So anyway, I hate to actually take enforcement against the guy that owns it, but that's the only way we're going to actually have an assessment done. And the enforcement can be an assessment and possible follow-up. I mean, it might be that the impact has not done grievous damage to the function of that pond. As opposed to the function of that stream, there is none. It's a desert. And any habitat that existed in the previous sediment no longer exists. So those are my thoughts. We can take enforcement, get an assessment done of the pond, and have it in such a way, worded in such a way that we'll make a decision at that time. And they'll make a recommendation as to the extent of the biological damage to that pond. That's one choice.
Well, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Well, this, the.
At this-
yeah,
It's
this is
it's not a
yeah.
public hearing. Okay, sorry. So do I have a motion?
Okay, I'm just reading.
What we had said was, if the EO is not complied with, SC will refer the non-compliance of the EO to town council and formally request DEP assistance. Do we want to use that?
If that's your motion, Mr. Chairman, I'll second it.
Okay, I'll make it a motion. It's what we said at the last meeting, so that's the reason I bring it up.
Right. Yep. Right.
Right.
And that includes the assessment by a third party.
Right.
whatever we
Right.
call it.
Right.
Yep.
And then we would,
And by the way, we have to be clear about the fact that it's not an assessment of the pond that's going to be paid for by the pond owner. It's an assessment of the area betwixt the pond and the RV center.
Well, what was requested in the enforcement order is an assessment of on-site and off-site resource
Right.
areas impacted. So
And
that's what you've been
that's what
We
looking
had
for.
crossed this bridge once before.
but didn't include the pond?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So your motion would include an assessment of the off-site stream and the pond.
Right.
Right.
No.
And so it means we would have to initiate an enforcement order against the adjoining property.
Well, I think at this point in time, I think that
Council tell us to do that. You're right.
I would recommend, before taking any action like that, I think we deal with the enforcement order that's in front of you. And if your motion is to refer it to town council because they're not fully complying with it, and that's the order they're not complying with, we start that process. And then, the other property owner may give permission to go onto the property for an assessment. We don't know that it's fully off the table, that no access could be granted at this time.
Right.
So I think that's the first step, and just go from there.
Very good.
Right.
So we need to phrase the motion in such a way that it does exactly what Rebecca has just described.
And I think that's what the motion said.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, it was almost, yeah, that was. And it's been seconded.
Any further discussion on it?
I seconded it, and we've already had our discussion.
Well, I said any further discussion. I just want to make sure that we had it in.
After it's seconded.
All right, seeing none, all in favor, Eric?
I'm not in favor of the
Okay.
legal action.
Okay.
I'm in favor of the legal action. Steve Halterman.
Ed Goodwin, I'm in favor of the legal action.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle, in favor.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. you. Thank you.
That's one. Now we have the second one.
Yep.
Right. All right, so. Yeah. So now we're on 30 River Road.
No.
No,
Yep, request to amend.
what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2.
Number 2.
I'm sorry.
30 River Road, request to amend an OOC, DEP file number 300-1021.
All right, so this is a continuation from the last meeting where we did discuss this request. One of the things that had been requested is that the plans were revised to include the restoration areas that were, one from the original NOI and then from the amendment from the previous enforcement order. Those were added to the as-built plans, which do reference each restoration area, which is in the report, mitigation planting plan that we have. So this is one of, one of the things they need to do for one of the orders on the enforcement order. So I think at this time, you can't approve this amendment. They did revise the plan to include that. It's for work that's already been completed. There's no additional work to be proposed under this. This is just the amendment from the last one. So I did include in that all previous conditions should apply. I would ask that since we've got now two notice of intents, so there'll be 2 orders of conditions eventually for this property, that the final as-built plans, after they do the last drainage structure, be submitted with the certificate of compliance request. And then also to include the changes to the bank and riverfront area, because I think at that time when, we go through the growing seasons, the ORAD, whether or not that is necessary, the ORAD will be expired at that time anyways. And then there's the revised O&M plan. I think they did agree to this at the last meeting, would be submitted also with at some point here, which shows all stormwater BMPs, the planting restoration areas as well. And that the landscape plantings must be installed in compliance with the approved plans and have a survival rate of 75% after 2 growing seasons. So.
All right. Scott, you want to talk at all on this?
I think everything that Becky described seems reasonable. The only thing I would question is the revisions to the bank and riverfront area. I think it's an exercise in futility, simply because unless an order condition, a certificate of compliance is issued before the ORAD expires, you can't revise the ORAD. It's a completely separate filing, so you can't make those revisions. The other thing to keep in mind too is that at that time we're going to be requesting a certificate of compliance, and the certificate of compliance closes out all the wetland boundaries. So any future work would require a new application, new wetland delineation, review of that delineation. So I think with the exception of that one, that, it's really meaningless. I think everything else is reasonable. And the other thing I'd also report is I was on site today. All the water exiting the site was very good within drinking water standards for turbidity. The other item too that I'm sure the commission will be happy about is I actually took a photo of them unloading trees and shrubs for the mitigation planting. So they've got a whole truckload of material that they anticipate planting in the coming weeks.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, could I interrupt here?
I don't think you need to. You're all set, Scott?
Yes.
I have a specific question for Scott, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Back several months ago, there was an agreement that was made by Pine Lakes through you that after every significant rainstorm, we would get a report relative to what took place during that storm relative to your facility. We had 2 inches of rain on Sunday. We got no report. We had 2 inches of rain or 1.7 inches of rain on Monday, and we got no report. Is that in defiance of an enforcement order, or is that just I don't know, I don't want to call it neglect, but
No, I can certainly provide the results from my sampling today. I think it was just a matter of, you know, Jimmy Piappi's been up there evaluating it, looking at areas, and he noted no issues. So I guess based upon that, I guess in hindsight, we could have provided that information, but I can certainly send.
I do not possess a crystal ball. I thought there was going to be a report, even if it was a short one, that said, hey, everything is ASAP, it should be perfect. And we didn't
I
get
can,
anything.
like I said, I'll provide the results to Becky tomorrow. I'll send her that email.
Scott, does that meet the requirements of the EPA's guidance on stormwater control?
There's no requirement to do the sampling. You know, we went above and beyond what's required for the sampling. The project is you know, fully stabilized, you know, pretty much done. So I think, as far as EPA is concerned, I think the SWIP inspections are not needed at this point. But I haven't been handling the SWIP inspections. That's been the PE, I forget his name, but it was a specific environmental monitor that was providing those reports to the commission.
Well, did you see the pictures that Mr. Halterman sent in?
Which one, from the evaluation from the last couple weeks or so?
Yeah.
Of the stream?
Yes, he did.
Yes. Those are, you know, I've provided 2 reports on that about that area, and, you know, we're proposing the next notice of intent application, we're proposing to do cleanup work on that stream. So, you know, we were anticipating going in and doing that work.
So it's your impression that that work does not have anything to do with the enforcement order, therefore you don't have to be doing it now?
Well, the commission wanted a notice of intent, so we filed a notice of intent to address the enforcement order. We need, you know, we need an order of conditions to be able to do that work. And my understanding, you know, working with the commission for the last several months, you know, was you were asking for specific things, and we prepared a notice of intent that we felt addressed the commission's concerns.
And I believe most of that work was going to be done during the summer, during the drier months, rather than now, probably July, August. And we need Natural Heritage to sign off on the turtle plan.
How would we know that that work was going to be done during the summer months? Has that been written to us? Has that been stated that this was your desire?
Dave,
Yes, that's all included in the notice of intent application.
Dave, are you talking about the restoration work, or are you just talking about the monitoring rain events?
The restoration.
Right, yeah, the restoration, that's part of the next notice of intent for the on-site areas.
Right. Anything else? So, Becky, what do you think about this, trying to find the part that Scott says is not?
Bullet point 2 under staff recommendations.
Oh, so those were, like I said at the last meeting, that was with conversations with DEP when the dam was coming out, when the dam failed and the dam was coming out. That was per DEP as the resource area
Yeah.
changing on there. I did reach out to DEP after the last meeting to get something from them, because it was a discussion that we had, and I didn't get anything back yet on that. But, I mean, the ORAD is going to expire. They have to, you know, monitor for the growing season. So by time they're going to get a request for certificate of compliance, the ORAD is not going to be there. So that was directly from DEP to have that added on an as-built plan at the end. So that's why I've included it. You know, if you think it's advisable, the resource areas have changed out there because that dam came out. It wasn't part of the original permitting. So it's, you know, they said to have that done. So that's why I've added it in there. If you want to have it in there and they don't agree, then they can appeal it, I guess, but I just don't see the concern about it. I think the ORAD will be expiring,
Yep.
you know, this year anyway, so.
Thank you.
Anything? Do I have a motion?
Go to the public.
Yeah. Becky? Becky?
Aaron.
Aaron, I'm sorry. I can't see her.
It's Aaron over there.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 30 River Road request to amend orders of conditions? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 30 River Road request to amend an order of conditions?
Motion to close the public hearing.
All right, motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Steve Halton.
Oh,
I was asking for a
Caspar.
motion to close the public hearing. I wasn't making one.
He did.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, Eric Caspar, so moved.
And a second.
Steve Halterman.
Any discussion? All in favor? Eric?
Eric Caspar in favor?
Steve Halterman.
Steve Haldeman? Ed Goodwin in favor?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Okay. And do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the
The amend?
order of conditions with the agent's conditions as stated for DEP filing 300-1021.
Steve Halterman, I'll second that motion.
Discussion? David?
Evidently not.
No? Dave?
No, I hear you. Yeah, I'll approve it. David Barnacle.
Stephen Chittister, I approve.
Ed Goodwin, I approve.
Steve Halterman, I approve.
Eric Caspar in favor.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot for coming in. Or,
Oh, one
We have
more.
one more.
One more.
oops,
And now,
you're back.
on 30 River Road, continued NOI, all work to complete the site-DEP file number 300-1102.
All right, so this is a continuation from the last meeting. This is a new notice of intent to complete work on site and address the enforcement order as it relates to the subject property. Work will include installation of the water quality swale at Outlet 6, restoration of the on-site stream and removal of the temporary dam, completion of the mitigation plantings and removal of the asphalt grindings in the vicinity of the pool. That was already removed. So we continued this at the last meeting. You were looking for more information about the enforcement order. So there's been no changes to what they've submitted for this. There was no request to change anything for this. It was a matter of continuing it to have some additional conversations there. So, I mean, I think at this point, if you're comfortable with it, I mean, you can approve this. I would recommend some conditions with this. Obviously, we have the natural heritage comments that we had talked about a few meetings ago. Those need to be included in this. They're specifically for work occurring, so it wasn't relevant to the last amendment request. I would include our standard orders of conditions. I would recommend, there was some discussion about the erosion control blanket in the duck pond area. I do think that it's advisable. They do have ones, we used them on our stream restorations at Hammett Brook, that don't have the plastic mesh in there that entraps wildlife, so they do have ones out there that are suitable. Like I said, we used them at the Hammett Brook Restoration Project. I think that's advisable, especially if we do get any of these flashy storms and it washes out some material. So I would think that's advisable over when they seed that. And then also, I would recommend that the restoration work is completed this year, as it's related to the enforcement order. And then one of the other things, and it's what you asked for in the enforcement order, and Steve, you brought it up earlier, is that you did ask for the areas to be assessed. I do think it's advisable to have someone come in and look at them ahead of time, and then look at it post restoration. And they can provide some recommendations, and, you know, provide that report to you before and afterwards. I think that any recommendations should be included in the scope there. And I state this because we have had some concerns with what's viewed as impacts to those streams or not, so I do think it's advisable to have that in there. It was part of your enforcement order. I think it would just be something where someone just goes in, does that quick look at it, and then they can come back afterwards and see, make those recommendations, and come back afterwards and confirm that it's been done appropriately. That's all.
David, any comments?
Well, since this particular item does not cover the full complement of the EO, the enforcement order, I could never vote in favor of it. It has to cover the whole amount, including the enforcement order. And since the enforcement order has not been taken care of yet, I don't see why we should move on with it.
Stephen?
Yeah, I think, I agree in part with Dave, but I think we want them to get this work, which is equally important as, you know, the off-site impacts. We want to get this resolved. So my opinion is they'll have to file another NOI for the off-site work once that goes through the town council and whatever route that's going to take. But at least this gets them addressing all the other items that are on-site and completely under their control, and we can get this resolved. So that's my opinion.
So you are talking about the on-site on this last sub-bullet? Okay. So, and I was going to, without that clarification, I was going to say that it seems complicated that we've got these issues covered in two different places, but we really don't. So I'm all for this. Nice job.
Yeah, and my opinion is as long as whatever we put in here is consistent with the original enforcement order, which seems to be consistent with an independent evaluation of that for both on-site and off-site, we're still asking for the independent evaluation. For the on-site, we're remaining consistent. So even though I voted against the legal action, I think we're still at least being consistent with the on-site, and the further compliance can be dealt with in another manner, but we are still asking for that third-party independent oversight, and therefore I think we're being consistent, so I would be comfortable with this as well.
In listening to the earlier dissertation of how clear the water was and how harmless that they are rendering the site, I don't have a high level of trust with these activities going forward. You know, I'm at a point where if we don't get the back end of our problem cleaned up or committed to, that, you know, we're just lying to ourselves. This is just, you know, the pond is going to be pulled, the temporary is going to be pulled apart. This is just going to be more of a problem.
But if we're asking for independent oversight, aren't we at least providing ourselves a level of protection there?
Are they committing to the oversight, though?
Well, issuing the order of condition. Whether or not if they choose not to comply with it, then that's a separate issue. But, you know, I mean, yes, and with the full understanding that in February, I believe it was, that, or maybe even prior to that, that Mr. Moreau committed to the interfluve
Yeah,
and paying for that independent review, and then
Right.
pulled that off the table
and now,
after the fact. I get that, but as long as we're remaining consistent, and no work can be done without the independent agent or independent assessor being there as our agent, so to speak, to protect the wetland, I personally don't see the harm in allowing that to move forward. If they object to that, and then that becomes another issue, well, at least we have gone in good faith and said, this is what we are comfortable with.
okay.
But Eric, we have case history on this already, where approval was given at a meeting, and when it came time to write the check for the independent assessment, no check was forthcoming.
Yep. Well, that's what he said. I mean,
Yeah, I understand that.
Why give them a second chance to not do it?
Well, I would prefer to give them an opportunity to do the right thing here and get that site cleaned up sooner rather than later, because just by our action earlier, getting it wrapped up in court is going to delay this without question until 2022 or beyond. So if we, in good faith, are giving them an opportunity to rectify at least that section, I'm in favor of not letting the great, letting good be the enemy of great in this case. And I'm not saying we let them off the hook, but I'm saying we give them an opportunity to rectify this within what we're comfortable doing, and we're meeting them at a line that we're comfortable at drawing, not at the line that they're comfortable at drawing. And if they choose to ignore it, well, that's on them. But, that would make me sad, because then, of course, we are going to be dealing with this in 2022 and beyond. But at least give us an opportunity through this action of approval to get this wrapped up and get this taken care of in 2021.
But I don't think that we should give the public the impression that we will be the responsible party for dragging this into 2022. It is a lack of consistency on the part of the Lake
You
Group.
use a microphone.
It is not our responsibility that we're going to 2022. It is their responsibility for non-action relative to the items that we have provided to them. We've given them lots and lots and lots of opportunities, and they continue dragging their feet and not getting it done.
I understand that perspective, however, I believe we can control at least this piece through this action. We give ourselves an opportunity through this action to get at least this piece done this year. Through the legal action there, if we do not give ourselves this opportunity, it will be impossible to see, for me, to see a way through that gets this dealt with any earlier than next year. And I'm being generous with the way proceedings go, that it'll be next year. And if we can get that, if we can start to get that cleaned up now, that's at least an improvement.
all right.
So that's.
We take this outside?
Not yet.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the continued notice of intent for 30 River Road, DEP file 300-1102? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 30 River Road continued notice of intent? No one's there.
No one's there. Motion to close the public meeting.
So moved, Eric Gaspar.
Second it, Steve Holt.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of closing?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve Hoffman.
Steve Hoffman.
Ed Goodwin?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle opposed.
You opposed to closing the public hearing? meeting?
That's what the motion is.
Okay, yep. Just looking for clarity, that's all.
I'd like to make a motion
Go ahead.
that we approve the order of conditions as laid out by the agent, including all the agent's notes and recommendations for DEP file 300-1102.
Steve?
And since we are, I guess we're looking for a second. Since these are things that we asked them to do, and now they've come back and said they're going to do them, I will second that motion.
Okay. Discussion? We've had plenty of discussion. Okay, well, let's have a vote. Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve Halterman in favor?
Ed Goodwin, opposed.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle opposed.
Okay, it carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Have a good night. Thank you.
We are now at 28 Camp Road, continued notice of intent, construct a new single-family home and associated work, DEP file number 300-1101. All right, is this the one you,
Yeah, so I did receive a written request from the engineer for a continuation to our next meeting of June 15th. They do need some additional time to work on the materials that they need for the notice of intent.
all right? All in favor of a continuation?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve Halterman in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
All right. Now where are you at? Where are we at time-wise?
No, we're good. 7:05.
All right. 238 Walker Road, continued notice of intent, construction of a new single-family and associated site work, DP file number 300-1100. Mark Farrell. And this is also continued?
Yes, same thing, same engineer requested a continuation. They're still working on the notice of intent. They also needed to file with the Natural Heritage Program and receive comment. So I don't know that they said they were going to file, if they did file and they're just waiting for comment, or they haven't filed yet. So they also asked for a continuation to our next meeting. The other thing that we needed for the notice of intent was the BVW data sheets for that property. So we haven't received those either, so.
Just out of curiosity, I can't remember from our previous discussion, was he going to move the property? Did he do that as part of it?
Yes, yep, he did make some revisions to the plan to shift somewhat.
Okay,
Yep,
good.
that was done, yep.
Eric Gaspar in favor of the continuance.
All right.
Steve Halterman in favor of the continuance.
Ed Goodwin in favor of continuing.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
This is a recording. David Barnacle in favor of continuing it.
All right, we are
We got
ahead
2
of
minutes.
schedule. Becky, you got anything you want to do for 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Eric, you're flying, man.
I know, see?
We went through all of my small things there.
Management material over here.
Well, just, yeah, I can do agent report too. Right, just for record, next meeting is June 15th. Next site visit scheduled day will be June 8th. So I'll let you know on Friday what we'll have in store for that. Just quickly for a quick agent report, just so you know, we've been trying to catch up and do some more compliant site visits. So trying to get out and check on these ongoing projects.
Okay.
Couple things, just so you're aware, pilot's wrapping up. Things are looking pretty good out there. A few last things that I'm waiting for from them, but they're getting their as-builts together, so we should be seeing that closing soon. Obviously, I don't think that's going to be closed out with us for a little while, but glad to see that a lot of that's done. Last time I went through there, even though it's very dangerous driving back there with the trucks, it did look like they put the fence and the boulders up in the back. Didn't attempt to go all the way up and through. There was a lot of big trucks, so we'll go there another time and check on that. But things look pretty good over there, very happy with that. They did have it stop where, you know, the causeway was going over. People used to be able to just drive down there. And it was paved a portion of the way down. All that pavement's out, pavement stops, there's a curb, the gate's up, and then they've actually seeded that. So it's seeded, and then there's permeable pavers down below. So that was a good outcome over there. So looking for guardrails, confirmation they had put some riprap on some slopes over there, that's sufficient for what they need there, and something else I can't think of at the moment, but.
Becky, one question. When you looked at the trees that they had planted around the pond,
Yep.
did they have wire around the base of the trees? Did they have beaver protection around the base of the trees?
Well, that's a good point. So they didn't do the ones around the pond yet, but they have ones on site by the basins.
Yep.
No, I don't think those ones had it. But that's a good point by the pond. I don't know if there's been beavers, but right, there likely can be.
Well, remember that, we can remember that 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when there was a full-blown explosion that took place of the pipe that went underground from the river to the river.
Yeah.
They planted trees in recompense from that problem occurring, and it took 2.5 years for those trees to come down,
Oh,
all by
okay.
beaver. So I think it would be worthwhile giving them a friendly reminder
Okay,
if they want the trees to live.
yep. All right,
Good point, Dave.
we're past it. Yeah, I can continue later, so we're back on time here.
All right, so we are now at 7:15. 122 Main Street, continued notice of intent, redevelopment of a gas station / convenience store, DP file number 300-1093. Okay.
Right, so this is a continuation, so just to refresh your memory, this is a gas station redevelopment project, did request for a peer review for stormwater. We did receive that report in recently, I did provide that to you. We do have Robert on here to go over that report for you, and if you have any questions. We also have the property owner on here as well. I did speak to the engineer, Steve, from SciTech, after the report came out. I spoke to him on Friday for a little while. There is a list of things that need to be submitted, and we did talk about some additional potential revisions to kind of increase treatment on site. Actually, so Steve did give a written request for, he couldn't be at the meeting this evening. They're working on a response and looking at some of those revisions. He did ask for a continuation, a written continuation in advance because he wasn't able to attend. I did say that we were going to have the peer reviewer on to go over, so we'll just go over the report. If you have any questions for the peer reviewer, any comments that we can give back to the engineer.
Sounds good.
All right.
Right?
All right, Robert, do you want to just quickly go over that for the board, please?
Yes, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Hello, I'm Robert DiBenedetto. I'm with Sherman Frederick, Division of Hancock Associates. We prepared the peer review report. And on the whole, generally, most things were accounted for. We did request, I guess we could just start at the conclusion and just go through the list of items that we'd additionally require, and then we can go into any detail as you see fit. So at the very end, the conclusion there, we would require the long-term pollution prevention plan as for standard 4. We would request an alternative treatment train for the stormwater generated at the fuel islands. This would be in satisfaction of standard 5. We're highly recommending a redevelopment checklist as part of standard 7. We feel that would be very beneficial for the commission to have the justification for any items that could not be met beyond the maximum extent practicable. We're also requesting the long-term operations and maintenance plan, and then an illicit discharge compliance statement. Most of those items are pretty boilerplate, they just have to be supplied. The two that would involve a little more work are the redevelopment checklist and the alternative treatment plan. Specifically with additional treatment, the reason being is for this land use higher potential pollutant load. Because we are treating a gas station here,
standard 5 essential requests a pretreatment and a proprietary stormwater filter in addition before it goes to infiltration. We understand that with the room that's there now, certain things are not going to be able to be met. There's just no physical way to make that work. However, we do strive to adhere to the standard as much as possible. So we feel that there could be some additional treatment device that could be introduced here to provide a little more protection for the downstream wetlands. As I mentioned before, the redevelopment checklist, it would be a comprehensive review that shows why specific standards between 3 through 6 cannot be met to the fullest extent for topographical reasons or for just site restrictions.
Board have any questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Can you give us an indication about how much of the water that's coming onto that site is going to be exiting from the back end of the site, going down into the resource area?
Well, as I understand it, all of the water presently is going towards the entire wetland along the backside. Very little goes towards the road. The way they're proposing their improvements will be filtering from left to right on any of the plans that you may have in front of you there towards that crossing over by the sorry, my 4-year-old's talking in the background. Going over by the gas station and towards that local area before it reaches the wetland. One improvement that is going to be made to this is the buildings are now going to have some kind of immediate infiltration before it overflows into the wetland. It is understood, though, that the existing soil is not hydraulically conducive at all. It's very low in terms of infiltration. So it's better than nothing, so that's always an improvement to take the smaller flows, but it's understood that larger flows will be going off-site as it has before.
Yes, but you see where my concern is, because the last rainstorm a couple days ago was 2 inches, and the one 2 days after that was 1.75. And that amount of rain going down that steep a slope is surely going to cause all kinds of problems down below where the wetland actually is. And I just worry about that amount of water coming off from almost an entirely impervious site without some kind of protection.
Well, all I can say is that given that the existing site was essentially doing the same thing, they are preparing improvements to that to mitigate some of the water that will flow off-site. I believe it's an inevitability that water will flow off-site regardless of what they do there or if they do nothing. This will be an improvement. That being said, with this level that we have here and with the potential treatment for the gas station, that's where we're focusing on an additional treatment train for that. We can provide some more. I'll bring up the report now and see if there's something I want to speak to. And frankly, this is what Mr. Joyosa might want to speak to as well if he wants to defend some of that. This is where the checklist can help show what improvements have been made and justification for why additional improvements will either be fruitless or very cost prohibitive.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Eric.
Robert, thank you for the report. Just curious, given where the pumps were previously oriented to where the pumps are being proposed to be oriented, and given the sheet flow of the stormwater, obviously they are requesting to double the number of pumps. Is the orientation better or worse from a stormwater management standpoint than before.
I don't believe the orientation of the pumps makes a difference with regards to stormwater. The previous slope of the entire area was still going from left to right, and the proposed is following that, mostly because it has to match into where those entrances and exits are with the existing pavement. So the orientation of the gas pumps does little to change that. The improvement being made here is that you'll have a level pad for the gas pumps. So water that sits there, specifically oils, will have this ability to be trapped before it overflows into the next part for smaller storms. Larger storms, there isn't much that can be done for that, except for that it will go into the new treatment train that will be supplied. So orientation won't matter for stormwater. It's just a matter of treatment once the water reaches those devices.
And in your opinion, the treatment is significantly better under this than what was there before, which was virtually nothing?
Yes, it's better than what was there before. And this is where there will be some kind of balance between Standard 5, which requires pre-treatment and proprietary treatment and infiltration, and Standard 7, which is this is a redevelopment with limited room to make improvements and dealing with existing factors that make it very challenging to satisfy those standards. It's understood that only certain measures can be made. So this is where SciTech can provide maybe an alternatives analysis and can present something to the commission that says, yes, this makes sense, or no, we'd like to see additional improvements.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
All right, so since we're looking for a continuation, you want to check and see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to comment at this point?
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 122 Main Street continued notice of intent? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 122 Main Street continued notice of intent? I don't believe anyone's on the line.
Hearing none. Proposal was for a continuation. Everybody comfortable with that?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Alderman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Thanks, Robert. Okay, we are now
Continuing to June 15th.
at 104 Westwood Drive, continuation of a notice of intent, shoreline wall and landscape improvements, DP file number 300-1099.
All right, so we have Mike Tebow on here. I believe we also have the property owner. I'll give a quick update, and Mike, if there's anything you want to add in. So this is a continued notice of intent. Project description was including upland boulder retaining walls, a permeable paver patio located adjacent to bank, stone steps, and planting areas. As part of the process, it was noted that there was some additional wall repair work occurring along a existing stone wall of the bank and a new dock that was installed. So we asked those things to be included in this. The application was revised to include the additional work. I received a revised site plan, a dock sketch, and a profile plan of one of the walls as requested, in addition to the administrative things they had to do for the change notice of intent. It appears that, we're looking at for resource areas here, we're talking about bank, land underwater, and bordering land subject to flooding. Land underwater, it's de minimis with the wheels of the seasonal dock that'll come out. I don't have any concerns with that. Bank, it was a repair to an existing shoreline wall, wouldn't trigger, due to its existing conditions, wouldn't trigger a wildlife habitat assessment or anything of that nature. They did quantify why, that wall needs to be there versus some other type of wall. We've looked at some kind of recessed boulder walls. We've got some mature trees there, et cetera, that we'd have to take out. And then, so bordering land subject to flooding. If you remember from the photos, it's kind of a steep slope that comes down. They will be taking out some of that. It's like sparsely vegetated with lawn. They'd be taking that out within bordering land subject to flooding. So they're not adding any material, they'd be taking away. So there wouldn't really be any impact to the land subject to flooding there in that sense. And then it's buffer zone too. So some of the things that were asked at the last public hearing that we had was, looking at the amount of work within the 25-foot buffer zone, how to reduce that work. They want to have the patio there. That's kind of where they walk down, like to have a sitting area where they go onto the dock there. It is it's a permeable patio that they're proposing. They've also included mitigation plantings as part of their proposal for the work within jurisdiction. So I don't have any significant concerns. They worked to address the comments from last time. I would recommend approval of the project with the standard orders of conditions that we have, our conditions, and then also no work below the high water line to occur outside of the lake drawdown period.
All right.
Just to add, I know Steve Halter, if I have a minute. Steve Halterman had asked about the additional boulder wall that was, I provided this a cross section and just kind of showing the small piece of boulder wall and the relative height of it, and basically the grade that is that's there. And I think the concern was access for wildlife, and I don't know if that cross section is available at all, but I don't think it really would be inhibit access for wildlife, anything like a wall that was straight up and down, given that it's a boulders that are stepped back, and we're not talking about a steep area right there. It's quite ramp-like. So I just want to mention that.
I think your description of it as laid back, I can't remember the exact words you used, but that's exactly the sort of thing we were looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, it would be stepped.
Stepped, yes. There we go.
I can pull it up if anyone wants to see it too.
You saw it?
Okay. Yeah, I provided it to you.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Yep.
Any comments?
Yeah.
David?
I'm just curious about why the work has to be done within the 25-foot buffer zone. I know that the hill is extraordinarily steep right there, and anytime that you disturb that area, I don't see how it's going to be able to repair itself before it starts to erode.
To repair itself before it starts to erode. I mean,
Well, the
I
suggestion is
think
that you're going to clean it up and you're going to put some other plantings in there. The problem is that the plantings that are there are basically holding it somewhat together on a wildly steep slope. And my concern is if you take out what's there, which may barely be holding itself together in terms of grass and roots and maybe the fungi that are under the roots, I'm not sure it's going to last.
the stonework I'm proposing is what's going to help a lot, and then at the bottom of it would be that flat permeable area. So I think you stand a much better chance than it is now, to be honest, because there's not a lot growing there. So I think you're only gonna improve it, honestly, with the plan we're talking about. I have dealt with that kind of hill before, and I can picture it completed, and I think it's going to be big improvement over what's there right now. And I think the walls that I'm proposing is a big part of that, but also plantings that are going to be a lot more robust. I think the Vinca will be do a lot better it's got very poor soils and very steep grades. So the only thing it has there right now is, like Becky said, was something of a grass-like, treatment, but it's not doing well. So I think if we retain it some more, amend the soil for the planting areas, and use that ground cover, I think that will be a much better solution on that hillside.
Have you thought about putting down environmental cloth in the area and planting through the environmental cloth so that the cloth helps to stabilize the situation within that 20-foot buffer zone?
I think in the sort of the grassy ramp leading to that permeable paver, that I would want to do, some sort of a fabric to stabilize it. I don't think the sort of the ground cover areas I'm proposing, I don't think that's gonna need it. I'm pretty, feel pretty confident about those areas, but the grass area that you see on the plan, yeah, I think that could use a erosion control fabric to get it to where it needs to be to stabilize it. I agree. So that would be something I would do, but very, I think that's in the conditions that would make a lot of sense.
Okay. Anybody else, Eric?
Nope.
Steve?
I see this, as Becky has mentioned in her notes, that this is actually to mitigate the erosion that could take place there now. I think it's a good plan.
Stephen?
Just one question. I just want to be clear, there's no trees to be removed in this as part of this project?
No.
Okay.
No.
According to the paperwork that was brought forward, part of the reason for one section of the wall is to help protect the tree from getting eroded so that it will drop into the water.
Right. Okay.
Is that correct?
True. That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Check with the public.
Aaron, you want to check with the public?
Evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 104 Westwood Drive continued notice of intent? Is there anyone on the public line for 104 Westwood Drive?
I was going to try to fake it from here.
I don't believe there's
Hearing
anyone on
none.
the line.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So, second,
Steve Halterman.
Eric Gaspar.
All right. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor. David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodman in favor?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Great. All right, now do I have a motion to approve?
I move, Steve Halterman moves to issue the order of conditions with the standard order of conditions and the condition that no work below the high water line to occur outside of the lake drawdown.
All right. And that additional erosion control grass with it, did you?
Erosion control blanket.
Yeah, that David put,
Yes, let's add that. Thank
all
you.
right.
Eric Gaspar, second.
All right.
David Barnacle in favor.
Okay.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Ed Goodman in favor.
Steve Halterman in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
All right. We are now at number 8. We are 650 and 680 Route 15 continued notice of intent, proposed development of a nursery and a tree farm to include a perennial stream crossing, DEP file number 300-1092. Mark Krabrecki, Mark, you on?
Yep, he's on, yep. So we have both our peer reviewers on here too, so just as an
Okay.
summary of where we're at with this project, board asked for peer reviews, one from an engineer for stormwater compliance, with both the state and the town regulations, and then also for a peer review of the notice of intent, by a professional, wetland scientist, wildlife biologist for compliance with the NOI for the state and local regulations. So, those both have recently come in. We did do a site visit out there last week, a few of us. We do have both of them on the line to go over that. I'd like to start with letting them go over their reports. If you have any questions,
Right.
is that okay?
Great.
Michael, Mike, can we start with you for the engineering one? Because I think that one's probably a little bit quicker.
Sure, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. So you should hopefully have my letter in front of you. We identified, I think, 21 comments, and we don't need to go through all of them. Some of them are just boilerplate type of items. I'll just touch on a few that I think may require a bit more attention from the applicant and their engineer. Those being comment number 8 with regard to water quality volume calculations based on 1-inch water quality depth. They provided those calculations based on a 1/2 inch. So that could potentially impact the size of some of the basins on the project. Number 9, with regard to, again, this is under the local stormwater requirements, regulations rather, addressing phosphorus removal. I didn't see anything in the stormwater report addressing that. Comment number 10, in regard to the hydrologic groups for the site. This one folks get confused with, I see from time to time when it's dual classified. In this case, it's C/D, meaning drained versus undrained conditions. So in a natural site like this, it's considered undrained. So they should have modeled the site with D soils, but instead used C soils. So what that means is potentially on existing conditions, there's less runoff, site runoff. So your basins would have to be potentially larger to treat your proposed development. Probably not substantially though, in this case, going from C to D, but that is something we'll have to look at in response. Comment number 17, in regard to, aside from the stream crossing standards, there's all 3 of those culverts should be supported by calculations showing that they're properly sized to handle the hydraulic flow that is going through them. So each one expect to see a drainage area analysis and demonstrating that they can pass the amount of stormwater from the upgraded areas, again, aside from the stream crossing standards where they apply. And finally, the one I touch on is number 21, in regard to some of the stormwater basin locations, in particular basins 1 and 2, which are located near the stream. I think there's some opportunity there for the engineer to revisit those designs and potentially pull those basins further away from the resource areas and the buffer zones, potentially pulling it out of the 25 and 50 zones entirely. It does appear to be some opportunity to do that in the design. So those are the kind of the bigger topics. Again, the other items I think can be addressed pretty straightforward. But I can certainly talk about any more comments if the commission wishes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Stephen?
No, thank you.
David?
It would appear from the report that we got from one of the engineers that there are options to the crossings that have not been explored. Can you explain why that occurred?
Yeah, Dave, this is the engineer peer review. We don't have their engineer on here, so that's part of, right, the alternative analysis review, and that's, Oxbow kind of covered a lot of that.
Why don't we have the engineer on here?
I don't know. I spoke to the applicant earlier today. He called and said that they need to work to get their response together. They haven't had time to put their response together for you yet. They will answer all those questions. They just haven't had a chance. So they weren't on here for that reason, but the applicant is on here. So they'll have to work on that response.
Okay. Any other questions?
Be interested to see the responses.
Yep. That's what I'm waiting for.
That's the moment of truth.
No, nothing. Mike, thank you for the work. Appreciate it.
Good. What's the next thing you want?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So we have Ron from Oxbow Associates on here too, to go over his review of the notice of intent for compliance with both the state and local wetland laws there, so. Go ahead, Ron.
All right, Ron?
Hi, Ron, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm Ron Stilson from Oxbow Associates. Someone from Oxbow Associates, including me, visited the site 2 times to evaluate the impacts on the site. While we were there, we compared the proposed impact locations from the crossings to the data provided by the engineer and Ecotech. While we were on site, we used augers to evaluate the wetland replication areas and tape measures to measure the bank pole widths to make sure they were accurate. Our observations noted that while the bank pole widths are accurate and the stream crossings do meet the Massachusetts Stream Cross standards, and the wetland replication areas meet the size requirements for the impact that is calculated. And also that the Appendix Bs appear to be accurate while I was out there. But we had difficulty locating the exact impact areas just because the site wasn't staked out and a lot of the flags were missing. So I kind of oriented myself out there using, things that I could find in the field. But it would have been a lot more productive, I think, if there was some stake areas that highlighted exact impact areas. Looking at the riverfront mitigation and alterations, it appears that they are met in this design. But we did have some recommendations regarding alternatives analysis. Just to highlight, some recommendations, we recommend you stake the applicant stake the site, so the Conservation Commission can go out there and potentially see exact locations of the impact areas. And then I guess the most important regarding the alternatives analysis is to flag the rest of the site. It appears that, I get my numbers mixed up on which one's 680 and which one's 650. Hold on one second. So 680, it appears that the wetland flagging, focuses on the land around lot 680, but it doesn't really appear to be any work proposed on that except for mitigation areas or for riverfront mitigation. And the way that the flags are arranged on the site, they extend westward. The riverfront mean annual high water line extends westward, which actually puts more of the road into riverfront, allows more impact into the riverfront area, as opposed if they cross somewhere elsewhere that would be more perpendicular to the stream itself. On the cover of the plan set, it shows the stream pretty much in a straight fashion, draining directly south of lot 680. And I didn't see any wetland delineation that focused on that area. think it might be worthwhile to explore that area and then potentially design a road that reuses some of the pavement on Lot 680 as redevelopment, as opposed to, right now the road is currently proposed going through a forest adjacent to the pavement area. And it seems worthwhile to reuse some of the degraded habitat, if possible, especially for the amount of road that is being put into the riverfront area. Additionally, and similarly, the contours that are shown on the site plans are based off of, it appears that they used LiDAR to get the site contours, and it's not based on a professional surveyor. So this flood zone, the FEMA flood zone, is based on elevation data that is provided by FEMA, and I'm not aware if this flood zone is actually accurate, because LiDAR has some questionable accuracy, and you can see that on the plans where there's either vegetation or some other artifacts that are make it a little confusing. So exactly where that FEMA floodplain line goes seems like it could be more accurate, and we would recommend doing that so there's some comparison between alternative designs to see if there will be other floodplain impacts. In the current plan, there aren't, but I'm not aware if that's accurate or not. Regarding comments from DEP, DEP recommended that the applicant provide side-by-side comparison of impact numbers to the CONSCOM, so you can properly evaluate if this is the preferred alternative. We recommend that the applicant provide that to you. And like I said earlier, while this may have no BBW impact or BLSF impact, because of the shape of the riverfront area and the mean annual high water line, it actually puts more, seemingly puts more of the roadway into riverfront area than necessary if the road was placed elsewhere. But we don't have the data provided to us in the form of formal wetland flagging or floodplain data. Regarding the wetland replication areas, it does meet the requirements by the bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act. It provides a 2-to-1. They're in two crescent-shaped areas adjacent to another wetland north of the project area. They are immediately close to the existing wetland crossing, so it meets the requirements for being at the same or similar elevation to where the crossing would be going. I would recommend that the applicant leave the existing trees that are in the proposed replication area. It doesn't make sense to me to cut down existing trees to build a replication area and then plant new shrubs or trees. And also the area, the hydrology is very difficult to evaluate there. It's very rocky. We tried getting an auger in multiple locations. The groundwater is high, but we expect that kind of in this early growing season. But we recommend I'll leave it up to the discretion of the commission of whether they think that's a good location for a replication area. I think it would be difficult to evaluate the hydrology with the stone that is there, and I couldn't tell exactly where the replication area is going, but it appears it might be a stone wall that actually goes through the middle one of these. So that would have to be removed before replication area could be completed. And then the cold water fisheries, I looked at the correspondence between Rebecca and the cold water fisheries project leader. It appears that they're open to evaluating the stream if the town would like them to on the property. I'm not sure exactly how the process goes with this, but I imagine that Rebecca could contact the cold water fisheries project leader and just request that a survey is completed if the applicant agrees. And then lastly, the applicant has specified that that there will be a tree farm in the rear. According to the Forestry Cutting Act, there has to be some extent of the tree farm proposed on a forest cutting plan for the commission before they actually do the cutting. That's if they're doing harvesting. I understand now that there seems to be, they're going to be clearing the trees and then planting a nursery or native shrubs in that area. They specify that it's going to, all the forest land from the nursery to Lead Mine Brook to the east will be used for forest for these native plantings. None of that is shown on the plan, so it's unknown exactly where the tree cutting and extent of the tree farm would be. And I think that sums up most of it.
Great. Questions? Eric?
Well, Ron, thank you for the thorough letter and thank you for all your work. Would it be accurate to say that the applicant didn't do you any favors professionally by not having that properly flagged and staked?
It made it a little more difficult just trying to evaluate, trying to accurately evaluate the wildlife habitat evaluation forms, the Appendix B. And it requires, counting tree cavities, evaluating which trees are going to be cut and their dimensions, and whether there's any dead standing trees within the proposed impact area. And without knowing exactly where the proposed impact area is, it makes it more difficult to properly evaluate these forms.
Yeah, I assumed. All right, well, thank you, Ron. It's excellent work. You gave us a tremendous amount of information. I'll apologize on behalf of myself for putting you in a professional position to have to guess. That was unprofessional on the form of the applicant. No other comments.
Steve? Well, there are so many problems with this project that it's hard to know where to start. I think looking ahead for the responses to the comments, I think is going to be the key to this thing. But I think it's interesting, on site, several of us noticed the same that you did, that the replication areas might be better located somewhere else. Has anybody come up with a suggestion as to where a better site might be?
Well, I think
I'm sorry, for the wetland replication?
Yeah, I think that will be a question for the project engineer and the wetland scientist they used for the site, and we don't have that response from them yet.
Excellent.
Yeah, but there's a really simple answer. You don't have to mess the site up enough so that you have to do any replication. Therefore, you don't have to choose a place to put the replication. And you should remember that the latest study done by UMass, dated 2016, indicated that approximately 30% of all replication areas succeed. Think about the opposite number. That's the failing number.
That's right. Yep. I'm just anxious to wait for the
the comments, the response to comments, if we choose to do that.
Yeah, Ron, this is Stephen Chittister. I also want to thank you for your very thorough work here. I wanted to point out something in particular that you stated about the impacts to the riverfront area. So within the inner riparian zone, you were estimating that approximately 31,800 square feet was going to be impacted, but they're only showing mitigation of approximately 190 square feet in the same area. So, yeah, I definitely want to see that addressed. And I'm terribly concerned about the need for the type of access road that they're looking to put in there. And it didn't make any sense to me that they were going to cut down all the trees along the edge of the previously paved area when they've got a paved area that's, 15 feet away. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I just wanted to point out those. I don't have a specific question for you, but I do appreciate your work. Thank you.
Well, you could continue, Stephen, and indicate that the width of the road is wide enough to be part of Mass Turnpike.
Right.
You also didn't talk about the 50 trees coming down at one time, which I'm sure is going to be one of your discussions later. Well, I don't understand why you would cut down 50 trees and then plant nursery plants where the 50 trees were.
Right.
I'm having trouble with that. I also agree with Stephen that it's supposed to be a nursery. It's supposed to be a planting area where people are going to come and purchase plants. Frankly, I've been to a number of these places in the last 20 years, and I have never seen a roadway like the one that's described on these plans. It sort of looks to me like if people were going to develop something in Holland and they wanted to get to Route Massachusetts Turnpike, 84, Route 20, they could do it very simply by coming through that property onto Route 15 and make the route in 15 minutes. Whereas if they went by Holland Road, which is the next logical route, they have to go right through downtown Sturbridge. And maybe that is why it's big enough for a couple of gigantic trailer trucks to go on that driveway.
And pass each other.
And pass each other, correct? Thank you, Stephen.
Be 40 feet wide.
Becky, we've gotten to a point here. Do we want to go to the audience and see if there's... It's 8 o'clock.
Aaron can't wait.
Aaron? Yeah.
It's my moment.
Yeah, we could go on and on with this.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 650, 680 Route 15 continued notice of intent? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the Route 15 notice of intent? How do you know?
Hearing none? Becky, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, I mean, I have my notes within the detailed agenda, but it is my understanding that they're looking to reply to these comments. With that said, I do agree that there are a lot of things that they need to supply in order for you to fully consider this application, to make it complete. So the ball would be in their court to bring that back. I would also add in too, Ron brought it up also, but the cold water fisheries. So, it sounds like they did provide a watershed study that was done of the Quinnebog River and French River in 2004. It looks like there was a survey done. It wasn't through Fish and Wildlife, and at that time, they did sample a stretch of Lead Mine Brook there. I did communicate with Fish and Wildlife, and the last time they tried to do a survey of Lead Mine Brook, they tried to go off of Vinton Road, and they were just unable to. There was no water at that location, so they didn't look anywhere. I mean, I do think because it does have the characteristics, I do think it'd be advisable to have them to request that the area is surveyed, and I think it probably would have to be Fish and Wildlife that would look at that. It probably could be added to their summer survey, and I think it'd be useful to have them hone in on the area of this property versus, further upstream or downstream of Lead Mine Brook, just to get a good idea of that brook. So I think that is useful, and I would recommend that you ask for that too. And as just stated in here, it's my understanding that they will be asking for a continuation. If they don't want to, as in with any project, if they, you need additional information, if someone is not willing to give a continuation to provide that, then I would recommend that you act upon what's in front of you. That would be your only other choice. Like I said, we can have Mark ask for it, but it's my understanding that they're looking for a continuation to reply to comments.
Right. Okay, two things. First, survey to see that that's cold water stream. Any comments?
I think that's a good idea.
All in favor of it?
Yep.
David Barnacle in favor.
Yep.
I actually meant to make that comment and I forgot.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Yep. So it's unanimous. What?
I don't think it needs to be, just part of.
Well, it's Eric and Steve, obviously.
Yeah. If it does need to be, I'll make that motion, and Steve will second it.
I believe I seconded that.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs a motion. The motion will be
Yeah.
continuation.
Part of the notes.
Continuation.
The motion should be to ask Dr. K to come back and do a survey of the freshwater fishery possibilities for those two stream sites.
Yeah.
When is the continuation being requested until? Are we talking the next meeting, or are we going into July?
Yeah, we can ask Mark here. We would need, the next meeting is in 2 weeks, so we would need materials within a week from today. I'm not sure if they will be able to supply that in time for the next meeting or not.
So meeting after that is when?
July 20.
Mark, how you doing?
How you doing? Yeah, we just received the Oxbow comments, so we're kind of digesting those. I think Ron made the comment that the cold water fisheries evaluation would likely require the same crossing that we're proposing. Is that right, Ron?
I don't quite understand your comment.
In the comments that you made about the crossing, that regardless of the outcome of the cold water fisheries evaluation, that the crossing would be the same as what we're proposing anyway, with an open bottom is what I'm saying. I think I saw that in your comment.
Oh, yeah, the crossing structures, we recommend, anything with an open bottom to meet the stream crossing standards, either a bridge or a 3-sided box culvert.
And that's not going to have a material impact crossing in the first place.
Well, I think there's a question too with, the stormwater discharges will end up in the brook too. Clearing within riverfront area can have those indirect impacts to the fisheries resource too. So I think that's part of the reason for asking for that.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
Well, Mark's right.
timing-
We gotta find out what it'll take. How much?
Timing-wise, from our part, I think we would need at least a couple of weeks, which is fine. It possibly could be done by the next meeting, probably the one after that would be more prudent.
Okay. The one after that is
July 20th.
July 20th, Mark.
Yeah, that's more than enough time. That's well over a month.
All right. You're amenable to that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Motion to continue?
I move that we continue this till the meeting of July 20th.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Did you second it?
Yeah, and second. And I'm in favor.
Steve?
Hurry, you got a date?
Steve, are you in favor?
I'm in favor. Steve.
I'm in
Oliver.
favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
All right,
Before we continue, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
when you talked to Dr. Kay about getting that fishery survey done, one of the things you should also do is explain to him about lead mine, because people from Boston don't have the same impression that we do. When he said in his letters that he was interested that maybe one of the reasons there were no cold water fish in those streams is because of the proximity of lead mines, he may have been thinking about the metallic lead mines, and what we had was graphite mines that we called lead mines because they used to haul it to Boston to use in lead pencils. Has nothing to do with lead. It's all graphite.
Oh, I learned something tonight. I didn't know that.
I had no idea.
Ed Hood did a whole series of studies on it, including the house where 5 of the employees of the lead mine thing took place in the 1920s. All 5 of them in a one-room cottage right on Lead Mine Road.
Wow.
Boy, you can be the next Bob Greer.
Oh, Ed Hood?
Please.
All the information that you're, have here.
Well, they also used to put it in a wagon and bring it to Charlton Center, which had a railroad, which would bring it to Boston at that time.
Speaking of that, let's go to one,
Charlton Road,
Charlton
good
Road.
segue.
Yeah.
Boy, what a segue. David.
My God.
Don't you
thought
write
you were
it?
a
Continued ANRAD, DEP file number 300-1088.
You're no fun.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I think we have Glenn Kravosky on here, but I'll just, and the applicant, Jeremy Procon. All right, so this is a continued ANRAD. We had peer review done for resource areas. We did perform a site visit last week with the peer reviewer, did go over that. There were no major concerns with the delineation on site. One of the things that got brought up, there was a question about there's a spoil pile right next to the isolated vegetated wetland, and there was a question, was that spoil pile located on top of that wetland? So I did go back and I looked at the plans that were submitted as part of the notice of intent for the cleanup, and the whole area was considered wetland in there, so those lines weren't sufficient to help. And it doesn't look like it probably was done by a professional wetland scientist at that time. So I couldn't get any information to support whether the line is accurate there or if there could be wetland underneath that pile or not. So I did go back and look at that. One of the other questions that was had was the concrete culvert that carries the perennial stream. That's been there on the past permits that we've had for the adjacent property. I did note that on the plan, so it's been there for quite some time. So, the question is moving forward and closing out the ORAD. One of the things that was discussed is that you'd like to look at and see what might be underneath that spoil pile. Spoil pile needs to come out. We need to talk about that as part of the request for certificate of compliance they have, which we can talk about it after this public hearing. I did talk to the peer reviewer after the site visit just to see how to handle that. With issuing an ORAD. There's a couple different options. One other thing is we did have, I did reach out to Mr. Kravosky. They did revise the plan. They did show the area to be excluded. That back portion where the cell tower is, they did say that that's to be excluded from this ORAD because we didn't look at that. And they did include the wetland flags on the plan that are part of this.
But they're looking for an as-built, right?
Not as part of this. This is just they're looking for
But
an
I'm saying they are
ORAD.
looking for an as-built.
Well, yes, they have a certificate of compliance request in front of us that we need to talk about how to wrap that up too. Yeah, yeah. So you have a couple options. You can, have them start doing, the enforcement order work and get the spoil pile out of there and, see what's underneath there and wait on the ORAD. One of the options that the peer reviewer recommended, the isolated vegetated wetland, is just jurisdictional under the local bylaw. So you could issue the ORAD, and then we could put a note in there just stating that, that is jurisdictional under Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw. All of the resource areas are approved except that one. And then you can add in there, the area beneath the spoil pile adjacent to the IVW is inspected post-removal for jurisdictional wetlands, and the new line, if identified, be formally added to the site plan with proposed wetland restoration for approval. So that's just under the local bylaw. So, there's a couple options. I know they'd like to wrap up the ORAD, because it sounds like there's probably a notice of intent forthcoming. Overall, everything's okay on site. It's just a question, did they put
Why?
a soil pile on a wetland there? So, and how you want to handle that.
Yep.
So what are you looking for? So you're looking for an approval on that?
Well, I think you can. I think
Yeah.
you can approve it, and just note that in the ORAD, because it's just a local jurisdiction for that wetland. She's pretty confident that it's not connected,
Yeah.
it's not BBW. And that was, like I said, she gave a couple recommendations. I think if you want to, we could issue the ORAD, and just have that one note in there.
Does that handcuff us in any way, Becky?
No, because you're giving resource area approval for that site for what they're requesting, except as noted with the isolated vegetated wetland. So, I mean, you can do it either way. You can wait,
My concern is that it's close to a wetland, it's close to Hobbs Brook, it's close to all of the drainage that goes into the Hobbs Brook area. And as a result of that, if the end use is going to be parking of or storage of very large trucks with the oil, grease, gas, et cetera, that comes with them, why would we approve of putting them closer to a wetland?
Well, we're not
That doesn't
approving.
seem to be,
Yeah, so this isn't the development plan. All this is a resource area delineation, so they wanted you to verify resource areas, whatever
Yeah.
comes down the road with a notice of intent.
See, my problem with it is that I know that those piles were supposed to be removed when they built that building.
cynic,
What?
cynic.
No, I remember it.
So we need to have those piles removed, especially the one that potentially has a wetland, a resource area under
What?
it.
Yeah, that's the point, yeah.
Yep.
So what's the easiest way to do that?
Well, we got to give some type of approval to remove the piles. So there's no active permit. They can have an active permit to do the work underneath, so that's not an option. You can issue an enforcement order, and that is a way to get that done. And they have
Right.
said they will remove the piles, and they've submitted a plan. Enforcement order would get that done in a timely fashion. You could make them file a notice of intent, you could ask them to, but it's just for restoration work, so, you could have them file that. They have said they can file their notice of intent for their proposed activities and include it in there. I don't recommend that. I think it's important just to get the prior permits and that restoration work done first. So either you have them file an NOI separate to get the piles removed, but it's just for restoration, or you can just issue an enforcement order. I mean, they are complying, they're gonna do it, they're saying they're gonna do it, and have it done, and that way, it doesn't, take as long as going through the process.
I'd rather do an NOI on it. I don't know how you guys feel.
Well, I mean,
It's
I
enforcement.
think that an enforcement order, it has a bad connotation to it, but in this case, it allows them to do the work. So I don't have, it's not like we're clubbing them with it, but if we do an NOI, that's gonna push this further down the road. So if we just issue an enforcement
much
order to
further?
allow them to do it, I think that would,
Well,
Wouldn't be much further down the road.
well, I mean, the earliest they'd be able to get an NOI on feasibly would be July at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Well-
You know,
An enforcement order, how quickly could we give them a clear enforcement order?
next meeting?
Just
Next meeting.
do the piles?
No, next meeting is July 15th, so it would be a month
Yeah.
further in advance.
That point taken, Beck, what do you think? You think you can give them an enforcement order with clear guidance to get those piles out of there?
I think we can. I think we don't have to issue it tomorrow, but it can get issued and you can review it and add in any
Yeah.
notes that
Yeah.
you feel appropriate, oversight.
David, how do you feel?
reporting.
So Eric's?
I just think it's an easier way to get it done and a quicker
Yeah.
way to get it
All right.
done.
Yep.
I agree.
And then,
Don't
you know,
let
I
the
mean,
politics-
all we have to do is look at the next item on the agenda to know what happens if we don't do these things in order.
Yes.
Right? You know, so I think that this is easy, and if they're willing, it's, again, we're not clubbing them, we're just giving them a remedy to get this stuff done.
Okay.
And
To be disposed of properly.
well, yeah.
Would it include having that, the soils under the one?
Yes.
Yes,
evaluate?
yep,
I like that.
yep.
All right, make your motions.
That said, before we do that, do we want to go to the audience?
Can I,
Well, I just
yeah, wait.
want to make one other comment
ahead,
on this.
go ahead.
I personally don't have an issue with issuing the ORAD with the stipulation to do that, after the fact to check, what's underneath the spoil pile. I think it is more efficient. It gets it back in their hands faster so they can actually address it. And then they can come back to us with an NOI that much faster. So, that's just my own personal opinion, but I don't see any risk in, issuing the ORAD with that tag, putting an enforcement order to make sure that comes in, and then putting and then basically they can do both of those things at the same time. So that's just my opinion.
All right? Go ahead.
I have a question about the concrete culvert. So you checked and it's on the permit for, you mentioned DEP file 300-525.
Yes.
For the 174 Charlton Road.
Yep.
Could you tell from the permit that that culvert was to spec, that it was actually, was there a certificate of compliance that was
Well,
issued for that?
it was shown as existing already on that plan.
Oh.
It wasn't part of that proposal.
Okay.
Yep, and actually those two spoil piles over there that we saw, those were on that plan too, and those were existing. With
And my concern is that the way they constructed that culvert, there's no chance of movement of wildlife because the pipe is, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Well, that's something when, when someone comes back with a proposal, you can look at that. I'm not sure if they're proposing to use that or not.
Because that was obviously put in there, as I remember the site.
Was that the one going over to Babineau's gas station?
Yeah. What they did was, the stream was there.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get across the stream to
And DOT did the work.
dump materials, yeah. Dump
So it was
materials.
just supposed to be temporary.
Yep, yeah,
No.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What year would that have been that they put that?
You making fun of me?
I'm just wondering, technology and biotechnology and all that, I mean, that hurt to see that.
Yeah, it did.
No, there was
I mean-
there was a gas spill, and it was underground, and it had seeped all the way under Route 20 and was heading towards Hobbs Brook when it was discovered. And it was discovered only because Billy Babineau put the site on for sale. When it went up for sale, there was all kinds of investigations that took place, and lo and behold, on the other side of the street, Route 20, they found this plume, and it had a bright sheen to it. It was,
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And the
They were
weird part
digressing.
about it is, about a month before that, we had visited the site across the street from Billy Babineau's gas station, which is the Stop and Shop gas station, not across Route 20, but across that little dirt road.
Oh, yeah.
They were trying to put a house in there, and the house that was already there had 6 inches of water in the cellar. That entire slope comes down to a flat area, and the water just stays there until it percolates into the ground, and that's where Department of Transportation put the pipe in to go into Route 20, because they thought it was a solution to taking care of the gas station leak.
Okay.
All right.
Something to keep.
Do we want to check with that?
Yes.
Aaron?
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 150 Charlton Road continued INRAD?
Glenn Kowalski.
Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you. We're prepared to look under the ponds with fill that's closest to the isolated wetland.
Glenn,
And obviously, I don't know, they keep telling me, I'm curious as to who runs the camera, because it told me to shut my camera off, so I did, and then it's been blinking ever since saying, turn the camera on. I can't understand, should I be on or off?
Oh, that might just
Doesn't
be your,
matter.
no, it's probably just your network connection. That happens if you have a bad network connection. They say, oh, shut your webcam off, so you have,
I haven't had any problem. This happens when I
Go
come to
ahead.
Sturbridge all the time, but here I am anyway, so here comes my camera, whoever's running the thing. Well, because we just don't like looking at me anyways, but
There we go.
Looking good.
The soils underneath the corner of the pile, the isolated wetland, we're truly prepared to work with Mr. Chesler, Mike Chesler, remove the piles as things are getting drier, well, except for this rain event, but they were getting drier, and apparently they should get drier again. And then look at the soils to see if they're hydric or not, and if that isolated wetland expands a bit, we feel that it could expand, but not too much, and it's not going to affect any us down the road. But even if it did, we're obligated to look and see what the extent is.
Good.
Those piles also, we feel, came from some of the stream channel and excavation during the remediation part. And the culvert itself, I flagged this site for the cell tower, and that I flagged the site for the original building that is directly to the west of us, and those culverts were in then. This was an access to the field, so they weren't put in during the remediation part of the project. We have old flyovers to show that access, but that being said, we're going to address those culverts in some form when we come in front of you after this ORAD, LRAD. So that's that point. And we appreciate it if it does turn into an enforcement order, we would, again, immediately get on this project and get these areas cleaned up and rectify that small isolated wetland size. I don't think I have any other notes. Enforcement order work, access to site, IVW spoil piles, we're prepared. Also, we sent to Rebecca, we have permission from the adjacent landowner, G5, with liability insurance from Chesler to remove the piles which are not on our property, but directly adjacent to the brook.
Okay. Good, that's good. So the question is, how would you want us to come at you to get that done?
We've had friendly enforcement. Last year in 2020, we had a friendly enforcement order for restoration in Leicester. I know obviously you're not Leicester, but we've done these a few times over the years, and we don't feel harmed by it. It does get it accomplished. There'd be erosion controls, and access way would be through the adjacent over the reinforced concrete. If the commission did vote that way, we would get this thing done as fast as the commission gives us an enforcement order. We'll put it on a plan for mitigation and just move it right forward.
Good. That's good. Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to apply an enforcement order against those piles?
Do we need to close the public hearing first, or no?
Yeah.
well, I would recommend,
Continue.
yeah, we're still
recommend
talking
it.
about the ANRAD, so I'd recommend,
Yep. Continuation.
Continue? Okay, go ahead.
We still need to close the public hearing first. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, let's deal with the ANRAD, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about the request for a certificate, and I think under that, we can then maybe vote towards the enforcement order, however you want them to get the restoration done. Maybe just keep them separate,
All right.
if that's all right.
Hang on, Glenn, we're getting it straightened out.
Thank you, sir.
Eric, why don't you give her a motion on the ANRAD?
Well, the motion to close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing. Second?
Second. Steve Alter.
Discussion?
Dave Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Steve Alderman in favor.
All right, and I would like to make a motion to issue an ORAD on DEP file 300-1088 with the agent's note about the isolated vegetated wetland under that spoil pile and making sure that it is checked appropriately.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that motion.
David seconds it.
Steve looks like he's...
Do we get discussion?
Steve's puzzled.
Well, is it really an ORAD if we say it's not completed, we don't have the whole That was sort of like a second way of going there. I was going to say that the ORAD would come after we had the piles removed and we saw really what the wetland resource areas were.
Well, the way Becky wanted to do it was to just afterwards.
Well, yeah, I gave couple
Yeah.
options. You know, there's a couple options that came, discussion with the peer reviewer, and that's one of them. You can wait if you want to know for sure. She did say, recommended adding a condition too, which could address it, but ultimately it's your choice.
But aren't we keeping the ORAD open by this method, which is what we want?
Well, I mean, you want to close the ANRAD and issue an ORAD at some point, right? And sometimes you can add, if they didn't, you wanted to approve it with the revision to 7A flag, you can write that in there. You can add things in there. You can wait too, if you feel like you need to see underneath that first. So I think we're covered because if you've got the language in there, then it's written record, it's in there.
Okay.
But I think you can do it either way.
Okay, thanks. So you got a second on that motion?
Yep. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Eric Caspar in favor.
Steve Halterman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm just gonna, since Glenn's on, and he's on for a couple of things anyways, but I just would like to go quickly to since we're already talking about it, the 150 Charlton Road request for certificate of compliance, DEP file number 300-665.
Don't we have to come up with the wording for the enforcement order first?
We're gonna talk about that now.
Okay.
Yep. So, right, this is the request for certificate of compliance. Just so you know, there was a couple things that were outstanding. One was restoration of the site, which we just talked about, that they're proposing to do, and we need a permitting method for that. And the second one, there was stream sampling that was required after they did the remediation work on site, which wasn't done. So CMG was hired to go out there. Just find my notes here. They did do the sampling. It's been a little while now because we were waiting for the peer review. I didn't write the date in here, but I did give you the report, copy of the report. So they did the, stream samples were conducted to analyze conductivity in the presence of MTBE. It's their opinion that the non-detection of MTBE in the normal conductivity results for the stream sample suggests that historic gasoline release at the abutting property is not impacting the stream now. So that was one of the things they had to do. They took care of that. And if you're satisfied with the report that CMG gave you, the work they did, and then is the restoration plan. So I'd recommend that, right, we hold off on the issuance of a certificate of compliance for that until the restoration work is done.
Done, yeah.
Recommend that permitting pathway if you want to do the friendly enforcement order to have that done. So with that enforcement order, I'd recommend that they perform the remediation activities that are shown on that submitted plan, that they have oversight by a wetland scientist during work, and that a post monitoring report is submitted after, or post remediation work is
By an
submitted.
environmental engineer?
Well, we are wetland scientists, if they have Glenn doing it, I think Glenn could oversee that work.
Okay, so Glenn, can you work with that?
Yes, sir. And just to add in, thank you for asking me through the chairman, if there was a need while we're removing this material to call Gary Magnuson back in, potentially, the site was closed out by DEP. It just never was closed out by the conservation. DEP hazardous waste, it was closed a long time ago. So when Gary went out there and resampled, he didn't find anything because they're saying the DEP, and we supplied that information, it's clean. And plus, it's just normal remediation over the years of groundwater movement, but it had been cleaned at the time. And so if we need Gary Magnuson to just view the bottom of the piles and possibly to take samples, to, if you have any questions about the material we're taking off, he could always look at, there actually have 5 piles because somebody did bring up piles. Only 4 of them away from the wetland. The one that's combined with a second pile is only one pile that's next to that isolated wetland. So just to be clear that not every pile is going to turn into a wetland. They're in the middle of uplands, 4 of them.
Right.
One of them, there's 2 touching each other. One of them, the smaller one, is right
Two of them
against
are
that ice.
200 feet-
That's
are
all.
within 200 feet of the stream, though.
They're in the riverfront area. That's why we also propose to put the loom down and also to plant them so that we're restoring the riverfront area.
Okay, we're floundering here, okay?
Oh.
I don't want any more input, I want some action here. Let's get.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna put the 150 Charlton Road Certificate of Compliance is on hold.
Yes, sir.
Do we approve? Is that?
Right.
Here, Eric, yeah?
Yep, in favor.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, okay, that's
Thank
on
you.
hold. Okay, so now let's go back up to 150, the ANRAD ORAD. So I need a motion.
We already approved that.
Yeah, that one's
did.
done.
That one's done.
We did?
We need
Well,
to do
then we
the
need
enforcement order.
The enforcement order.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right, that's what I-
Yeah.
You voted for it.
I know I did, I know I did.
No.
We need an enforcement order, okay? Motion to put enforcement order on 150 Charlton Road.
No, we've agreed that we're going to have an enforcement order. Now it's up to the chairman and Becky to come up with the wording that's required for the enforcement order.
All right, if you guys agree to that, then we'll take care of it,
Yeah.
all right?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, we have to vote that there will be an enforcement.
There will- Yeah,
As soon as the wording is done, they can bring it to the next meeting for approval, but one person can get the enforcement order going. Going back to exactly what was said earlier, this would make the process much, much faster,
Yeah.
so that they can get it done.
Yeah, you guys can draft the enforcement order and then bring it to us the next meeting. We can approve the language and then they can get the work done.
Yep,
and you agree, you all agree to that?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
yeah, with
Great.
reservation.
Does that work for you, Glenn?
Oh, thank you very much. Very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
okay, now we are at 118 Lead Mine Lane, enforcement order, DEP file number 300, 684.
Thank you.
All right, so, we did this similar to the other one we did earlier. You know, we've had the enforcement order under kind of old business, but we do have the notice of intent that was continued to this meeting. So we did put the enforcement order so we can have that discussion first. Before our last meeting, we had a site visit out there, and were to have materials submitted, to go over the final things that needed to be done on site. So we did a site visit out there, looked at the lower portion of the property, call it the lower lot, the existing house. You know, they kind of went over their plan. We were supposed to receive a kind of final plan on that. And then we also looked at the remediation activities that occurred on the upper part of the lot where the new house was going to go, and we were supposed to receive a report on compliance on that. So as of when I did the detailed agenda, I didn't have any new information to bring to you. I did receive a couple things today via email. Didn't go through those fully, but there was a plan to address the lower lot that I received.
Which you got today? So you're not bringing that to us? Okay, so what, we're looking for a continuation?
This is the
Continuation?
enforcement order. is the
What?
problem.
Yeah, that,
Yeah, so, I mean, he did submit.
right, sorry.
I don't want to say, I believe their final plan to present to you, which if you want to give them additional time, you can discuss it at our next meeting, but I think that, you know, we need the report, that the wetland restoration work was done. We went out there and we looked at it with them, we asked for some additional information, all the plantings in, just a report to send in for that aspect of it too. So we need that. You know, we've been continuing on and on because we haven't been getting information. And I think that at some point, we need to stop because it's just keep continuing and we're not getting information on time. But, you know, we have that final plan to address the lower portion of it that I think we can discuss at the next meeting. We need that wetland report too.
Glenn, we were really specific on our last site visit, specifically regard to the lower portion as to what we were going to do. Why don't we have that? Or why do we just get it today, if we do have it?
Because
the surveyors are bound right out of their mind over their head with work, and I've been pulling it out of we had a plan that was, I would say, 80% there that we submitted in time, and we added the 18-foot wall over along the road that we talked about, the stone wall that was falling apart. We answered the square footage issues on this new plan. We answered the drip strips on both sides of the driveway, how much that area that we were asking to keep was related in relation to the area of restoration and buffer zone. All those numbers, everything is on the plan that you have today. And I pushed to get it out of him just coming back from vacation yesterday. And so everything is on the plan, I believe, that you wanted. But Eric asked for different numbers to be shown, Steve had. We've got it all. So I don't think everything at that site inspection on 511, I believe it was, I could be wrong, but 511 is there of what you wanted. On the upper lot, if we can talk about both, you did ask for the 2-inch rise in the water elevation of the wetland. We accomplished that with photos and stakes and rock. And I think the only other thing, I asked the engineer, the surveyor, to put the pins in on the 4 house corners. And someone from the board asked how far down the slope was that vista pruning, even though it's outside the 50, how far down it was. So I sent the map, which I have here, with all points on it for the surveyor to show on the land, in case the commission wanted to see this thing one more time on the land. Here's the house, here's the limit of clearing, here's I'm looking at it now, the limit of the wetland as shown by Mr. Hill, and here's also the 25-foot buffer in that direction of the shed. That would be the upper lot. So the restoration report, sure, we have the plants and the soils, and I guess I didn't quite hear that was the main crux of the report, but yes, we have square footages and organic soil and New England wetland plant density. That's what I can say about. I could put in the report, but I was waiting for the surveyor to show what the commission asked on that upper lot. We didn't wait for that 2 inches. We did get that done with a stake and a white line and an elevation rise specifically to 2 inches above of the wetland. So we're done, I believe, here. It's just timing. And it was, today was the date we kind of pushed out the father's lot, and we do have the upper lot, I believe, set. If you need a report, you'll have it within 7 days, before 7 days before the next meeting, or within 7 days of today.
So there's stuff missing on the report that he sent?
No, I do it.
So what I got today was I got the revised plan for the father's portion of the property, what they're proposing to do down there. And then there was a quick email, I didn't read it all, about putting the stake in the upper part. But I think we're looking for a report that documenting that the wetland restoration work was completed per plan, detailing that all the plantings are in, et cetera. That's kind of what we need up there. And there was the question about where it discharged by the roadway too.
Right.
And there was some question about where the house is and the clearing going down the slope that was asked for the notice of intent.
Also, if I may, months ago, I told Mr. Kelleher that this commission would look very favorably on a removal of all of the blacktop to the right of the house and leave a 12-foot driveway. And he had a line maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 feet farther, and he said he'd like to cut the driveway there. And I asked him why. I'm looking for a reason, environmental reason, and he said because of money. And I said, well, I don't think that, given all the parking you have in the front of your house, I said the commission would never have permitted that big of a driveway. And then what he came back with was not cutting anything except 2 little slivers that were off of his property. Now, how do we take that except a slap in the face? You tell me, Glenn, because I'll tell you what. Well, I'm only one member, but
I think that he's just jerking us around, and I see that as a slap in the face. I said, I'll give you 12 feet is the driveway. I said, you submit whatever you want, and we'll see what we'll allow. And then so he submits taking nothing off. I would pass that on.
Is that what's on the plan that we have today?
Plan we saw
Nothing off?
had nothing except a little sliver off of where,
Right, what came in today, there's, across the street, that parking area will go away.
that was good.
And then there's, on the side of the driveway closest to the stream, some of that will come away with stormwater mitigation. And then they're proposing the two, right, I mean, I only looked at it briefly because I just got it this afternoon, but there's two slivers that'll come off, and they are proposing some stormwater mitigation over there for the driveway too. I think the front part.
But he's leaving all of the blacktop on his property, which, you know, I mean, come on.
It was put in without a permit, and we would not have permitted it to begin with.
Absolutely
Yeah.
never would have permitted that parking lot next to his house.
I mean, we don't have anything to really discuss because the stuff was not submitted. So I think we should table this to the next meeting and ask them to ask for a continuance for the next public hearing once we open it. But, you know, like, there's nothing to discuss here other than going in circles.
Other than just me venting.
No, it's fine. I get your frustration. It's not a criticism. It's just there's nothing for us to discuss because we didn't have the information in time, and that just, it is what it is.
Yeah, so,
It's an enforcement order.
yeah, it's the enforcement order. So I would say that if you know, since they submitted something today, didn't meet it, we don't talk about it today, you allow them a little more time, we'll come back to the next meeting. But in addition to that plan, the report documenting the wetland restoration work, that it's in compliance with the plan, needs to be submitted too for the enforcement order.
Yeah, let's be very clear about this. Yeah, we'll give them till the next meeting to address what they were supposed to address this meeting, but that's it. If we don't get what Becky just outlined, this, plan that shows the work was done, and
what they're
it
proposing.
complies, and what they're proposing is what we asked for, then
And then we have to approve or disapprove of what they're proposing to do.
Right.
Right.
So,
And I just want to be clear for the record too, that had we received this for the last meeting, had received it in time for this meeting or the last meeting, I think that we'd be moving on, and they'd be able to start that restoration work. But, I mean, not giving it in sufficient time doesn't allow you the time to look at it. It's, you
Sure.
need the opportunity to look at it before the meeting.
and recall that Mr. Kelleher, for a year, has been blaming us for holding him up.
Mr. Halterman?
2 years, sorry. Thank you. It's good to hang out with young people that have a better memory than
Okay, I want to continue this rather than talk about it anymore.
good.
Have a motion.
Request a continuance?
well, this is on the enforcement order, so it's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What did you say, Steve?
This is on the enforcement
Oh,
order
yes.
still.
yeah,
So we decide whether or not we want to continue it to the
Yeah.
next, or refer to town council.
Right.
I think we already,
I mean, I'm in favor of continuing it. I don't know that do we need to vote on it, or?
yeah, we do, we need to.
All right, well,
I don't know where you.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Of what?
Or if I need to make a motion, whatever it is, continuing it until the 15th of June with the expectation and understanding and acknowledgement by the applicant that all materials are to be submitted by the 8th of June.
Yes.
I'll second the motion, but I would like to add a half a sentence to the motion.
I'm open to edits.
Not to be repeated. Okay? Because
I'm not a fan of handcuffing myself, so I will not be open to that edit. If you want to vote it down, that's fine, but
Okay.
I would like to hear everything in its time.
but
But
part of-
I understand, I get it, I'm not arguing with it, I'm just, if you want to make that motion,
it's
you're
just that for 2 years now, what we've gotten is the same stuff. the day of or the day before, we get incomplete information again.
Sure.
I would just like make
Yeah.
sure that this is the last time. But that's all right, I'll pull back my amendment.
Steve, you voting for this?
I think you're waiting for a second, if that was an emotion. if that was-
Yes, we need a
Motion,
second.
yeah.
How did that end for, it was just. if
I,
they
I,
don't-
Glenn noted that he will have all materials by the 8th of June, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, July.
No, June,
June, I'm sorry, yes, thank
not
you.
July, June.
I got you. Sorry.
Have a second?
Too mad to second that one.
David, you want to second that?
I'll second it.
You can change the motion, shut it down, I'm fine with somebody
No, he
changing it,
seconded
it's
it.
just not.
We got a second, we got to move this thing.
All right.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Eric Asbar in favor.
Steve Alderman not in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Steve Chittister not in favor.
David Barnacle not in favor.
Oh, boy. All right,
God.
okay.
So we need another motion.
No, I take nothing personally. I don't, I'll pull
This is our
the,
professional
yeah,
life.
I'll pull the motion, it's fine.
Well, what do you wanna do?
I take
You don't
no,
have to pull it, oh,
What do you want to do?
Eh?
Send it to our attorney?
I guess that's the next step.
That's the only alternative we have.
Right, so we move this to our attorney, and I'm sure there's some good wording here that Becky has said. Refer the matter to, I move that we refer the matter to town council and request DEP assistance. And I guess we have an option to begin fining. Then we'd have to give them a date that we'd want to. So I will leave the fining part off as much as that bothers me. Okay. Is that a motion?
I'll second the motion. At least we got a discussion going.
Exactly.
Okay, just go open for discussion?
all I'm gonna say is, I get it, I understand it, it just seems like that is an inappropriate use of, town funds at this moment when we can wait 2 weeks. That's just my opinion, I know I'm only one vote, but, I would be willing, since there is information in the agent's hand, though it was late, that we can most likely action at the next meeting to refer to council and incur legal costs seems unnecessary at this point. That's my only comment.
That's 1 year and 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Or 2 years and 2 weeks.
I know.
I mean, I understand, but I know it's tough.
I feel we should have given the continuation because they have given us something that we haven't completely devoured at this point. So, and whenever we go into these things, so much is in intent, we're gonna waste the town's money and waste our time. And he wants to build that house with his son, and we're holding him up, and we can hold him up until the cows come home, if he doesn't comply. And so therefore, we need to make him comply.
Well, I'm only thinking about the lower part. So is the upper lot, is that what Ed said is true?
Well, I wouldn't recommend issuing any new permits for new work
Yeah, we're not gonna give him a permit for new work.
on a property that's
While
in violation.
While we sue him in court? What are you smoking?
And it's not work that's to address an enforcement order or anything either. It's new work, a new property, a new house. It's not, fixing stormwater or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's my position.
Well, if you wish, remember that we do have the possibility of reconsideration during this meeting. And there were 3 people who were the people who voted it down. So any one of the 3 of them would insist upon a reconsideration if they wish.
So we have a motion and a second.
To,
Okay. And that's that would require a reconsideration.
If you want to change it. If you don't want to change it,
You make a good point. So, okay, so do I have a right to just change my motion? I think I do.
you voted no.
I did.
Therefore, you were in the majority, therefore you have the right to consideration.
Okay. Well,
Reconsideration.
you guys make a good point. So, okay, I will withdraw that motion. I move that I withdraw that.
You cannot move to withdraw the motion. You have to move to have a reconsideration, and we vote on whether reconsideration is appropriate or not.
Okay.
Reconsideration of the first vote.
Of the first
the
vote.
first vote, not of the
Right.
enforcement order.
Right.
What do we,
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on the second motion since it
So
was
we turned
seconded?
his down.
yeah.
I don't,
So that's done. Now.
Or we have a new motion, after we consider the motion that's currently on the floor, we issue a new motion that maybe says, this is it, it's going to town council the next meeting.
Correct.
That's the motion that's on the floor.
I think we should
So
just
we have to
vote.
vote on this
I think we
motion.
vote on this motion.
You have to vote on this motion.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess I should have
All in
added your
favor,
language
David?
to begin with, David.
I'm not in favor.
You're not in favor of,
What do we,
Sending it to.
Of the enforcement
town
order.
council.
of the enforcement.
Yeah.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister, not in favor.
I'm not in favor.
Steve Altman, I'm not in favor.
You should stay in favor. I get it. I understand. I'm going to say not in favor, but I support you.
You know,
All right, new motion.
New motion.
Okay, now reconsideration.
We don't even have to, because
don't have
you wanted to have a motion that had the
Yeah.
caveat in it
That's right.
that was
So
it.
that's gone.
So
So
just
you can
your
make it
motion,
that motion.
and I'll support it.
So any one of us can make the same motion or bring the same motion up and have a revote, because we just said we could have a reconsideration.
Right.
Or we can add the teeth to it, which is, I will make a motion that we continue this enforcement order conversation to the next meeting with the understanding that Mr. Kravosky and Mr. Kelleher will present all relevant documents, all necessary documents to the agent by the 8th of June, or at the next meeting on the 15th of June, this will be referred to town council. That's
I
my
would
motion.
second the motion.
I'll second it.
It's already seconded.
Oh,
okay.
who seconded it?
Dave did.
Oh,
She already wrote it
Discussion.
down.
I wrote it down too.
I think we've discussed this long enough.
Discussion, please.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Alderman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
All right.
See, David, I should have just agreed
Here
with
you
you
go,
to
Glenn.
begin with.
Holy man.
We just spent 10 minutes because I didn't agree with David.
All right, so
Glenn
now we're
Kowalski just asked a
at
question.
We're number 10.
Glenn, what was your question?
Guys, 118 lead line. Notice of intent.
Mr. Chair,
Glenn, you still trying to talk?
Glenn was just asking a question. I'm
So
sorry.
it was just,
Okay.
the enforcement order clearly is on either the son's lot or the father's lot, or are you talking about both lots when you talk about this
We don't,
enforcement?
at this point, we don't know, but I'm going to give you a guess that we're talking about both. I don't think we're going to, so let's
Oh,
do
okay.
it. Okay,
I just wanted to know. So,
all right.
thank you.
118 lead mine, continued notice of intent, DEP file number 300-1073. And we are talking about the house, right?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. So that was for the son's lot. Thank you again. The last one.
Is we continue it until July 20th.
So moved. Just to move things along.
That's what, that's what you've recommended?
Right, because, I mean, when I wrote this, one, we didn't have anything to discuss this meeting, and we didn't have it in time anyways to discuss.
We don't
still need to
we
discuss
still don't.
that, and then they need to start to do those restoration activities.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah,
We should just check and make sure there isn't any public comment, too.
That's a good idea. Aaron, you want to check to see if
Sure.
there's any?
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 118 Lead Mine Lane continued notice of intent? Anyone on the public line for 118 Lead Mine Lane?
Sadly, no one on the public line.
Do we have a motion for a continuation?
I move we can allow a continuation.
Is there a request?
Request for continuation.
Was there a request made by?
He requested it, right?
Yeah.
Glenn, did you ask for a continuation?
Well, again, if this is 118 Adams lot.
Yes.
If that is indeed the one we're talking about, yes, this is the one I believe Rebecca was referring to, that she wanted reports on the restoration and replica of both wetlands and buffer zone. And that one that I stated that the surveyor was staking out the house and the limit of work on the vista pruning. So we would ask for that continuance to your next meeting, because that work, according to the surveyor today, is going to stake the house out and show the limit of work, which is 50 feet from the wetland as far as the vista pruning. And we're going to give you a report by the 8th of the plant species and the depth of the organic material in the hydric soils underneath the wetland that's been restored. And then the plant species in the 25-foot buffer that we've put the loom in and restored that. So that's the report that I thought Rebecca was referring to, that she wanted and we didn't get. So
Yeah.
that report would be in your hands by the 8th, so we could discuss the Sun's lot on the 15th.
So the answer is yes?
Why do we have the 20th on here?
I will
Yeah.
second Mr. Halterman's motion.
Wait a minute. Before you
To
do,
the 15th.
He's requesting the 15th.
he's requesting the 15th.
Becky put the 20th on there because we had received no materials. So we need to determine
We're not
if
even
he's
doing that
asking, is the motion based on his requesting the 15th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, so I put July 20th because, right, we didn't have, the enforcement order needs to be addressed first before any new permits for new work are issued. And considering that we didn't get any information and they haven't been able to start doing that restoration work, I don't know how you want to see what you'd like to see done before you approve a new permit. I put the 20th. So, it's up to you.
We did do the restoration work.
Two meetings out.
Oh, 2 meetings out.
That would, you could approve their restoration work, they could get started and then come back and document their
Oh, I
compliance.
didn't even,
Through the chairman, we did do the restoration work. That's what was shown to you at the site inspection.
Yeah, Glenn, I'm talking about, so the enforcement order was for the whole property, including what he wants to subdivide off for his son. So the enforcement order was for
Oh.
non-compliance with the older permit, and it was for the work he did without a permit. So the enforcement order is for everything.
I
We filed
see.
the notice of intent for the new house and included the restoration in it. And the commission wanted the restoration in compliance with the older permit, 684, I think it is, the number, before issuing any new permits for new work.
right. All right,
So,
So I seconded Mr. Halterman's motion.
for the 15th? Okay. Have a second? Any discussion? I think we should make it the 15th and just make the house after the upper house after the lower house. After the existing house.
Same as this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if the existing house doesn't comply, then the new plan does not comply.
Okay. Yep. Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Halterman in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor?
Stephen Chittister in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Your motion.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay. We're on to 263 New Boston Road. Eric, what do you think about this one?
Oh, boy.
Becky, Glenn?
Oh, so I'll just add, as of writing the detailed agenda, I didn't receive any new information per 7-day deadline. I did receive some information today. But I'm gonna stick with my original recommendation, and that would be, this is an RDA. I recommend, closing the public hearing and issuing the following determination. The positive number 1, area described in the plans, reference plans is an area subject to protection under the Act. Therefore, they need to file a notice of intent. And positive number 5, the area of the work is subject to review and approval by the Sturbridge Conservation Commission. You know, they're not proposing any development on this. It was a matter of, you know, asking the commission to look at the site to determine if there was vernal pool habitat on there. You know, considering, you know.
Yeah, Becky, I think this is perfect. Everybody's been on the site,
Thank you.
realizes
Thank you.
this is just,
Thank you.
that's on.
Yep.
You know, I'd like a motion to approve recommendation of the agent.
Thank you.
Do we need to,
Probably need to go to the public first.
Yeah.
and we need to close the hearing.
Go to the public?
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the continued INRAD for 263 New Boston Road? Is there anyone on the public line for 263 New Boston Road? No.
All right. That being said, do I have a motion to approve the agent's recommendation?
Close the hearing, right?
What?
Yeah, motion to close the
Yeah,
public hearing.
I'm sorry. I'm in a hurry, I guess.
Second motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Steve Alderman.
All in
Yeah,
favor?
second, yeah. Yep.
All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve Alderman in favor.
Ed Gooder in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor of closing the public hearing.
Okay, now a motion.
A motion that we issue a positive 1, positive 5, and require additional documentation supporting that the wetlands do not support vernal pool habitat as a requirement.
Very good. I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve
Steve.
Alderman in favor.
I'm in favor. Ed Goodwin?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. All righty.
Okay.
We are now.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you again very much for
Yeah.
your time in these matters. Thank you very
Anything you
much.
could do, Glenn, to get Mr. Kelleher to realize that this is going to be his last chance to comply from everything I can see from the board.
It's a fair
Yeah, thank you.
summary.
Okay, so we are where, Becky? We're on 12.
18. Glenn, are you by any chance representing 508 tonight?
No, we've gone by 12.
Yeah.
We're on, yeah, we,
Yeah, we went through.
We're on old business.
We're on
yeah, we're on old
18.
business, yeah.
Well, Glenn's still on there. I don't, he didn't
What?
mention to me, though.
Yeah, 508 International and Salu, A, Enforcement Order, 27 Lad Road. It's just a summary, right, Beck, from you?
For this one, yes.
Yeah.
So, right, for this one, so, right, you guys approved restoration activities on the site. They did send a letter, there was one letter that kind of went over a lot of their things on here, that the bridge structure was removed, and they asked for permission to seed the site. That was part of our approval, it's what we asked for. We asked for, buffer zone, et cetera, to be seeded. So they also notified us that no additional activities were occurring on the site, and said that we could schedule a site inspection if we chose. So I did inform them that the seeding can occur as outlined in our letter. And I do recommend that we do a site visit to go out there and take a look at that soon. I mean, it doesn't have to be the whole board, it could be a member of the board and myself, just to document that compliance so far.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Right.
Should we consider, if I may, maybe postponing the site visit a little bit now that COVID restrictions are being lifted and there's likely to be more activity on that property? I think it would be of everyone's interest to not show up right as the beginning of the COVID restrictions being lifted, where there's likely not going to be any activity, but more later in the summer, later in the year, when we can inspect this property for any suspect activity that is going on in Sturbridge. Just my opinion, but if they're gonna give us access to the property, I don't know that in the next couple of weeks is the right time to do that.
Yeah, well, through the court, we have the ability to go on the property, you know, obviously we could give notice, so we can go back. And we wouldn't be closing the enforcement order out until, I don't remember, I don't have it in front of me how we worded it, but that, you know, we could document that all the restoration is done out there. So I wouldn't advise that we close the enforcement order out anytime soon. But I do think it might be a good idea to go soon and go again.
Okay.
Yeah. We haven't.
As long as we have more than one bite at the apple, I just don't, you know, I mean, there's unlikely to be anything out there right now, right?
Yeah. I would like to see where the bridge came out and, the restoration over there too.
Yeah.
And just that, I mean, someone did inform us that there was, you know, dump trucks and equipment in that area, whether they're just driving or doing something, so I think we should take a quick look.
All right, anything else on that? Nothing, now we go to 508, number 19. Becky?
The different site.
Yeah, I know.
Yep, so this is for the enforcement order for
International and Jennings.
205B, 205C Podunk Pike. Just as a reminder, you gave additional time for them to seek compliance with the enforcement order. We did receive some materials, and we did continue it from the last meeting because we didn't have a full
Right.
board at that time. I did inform them of that, and informed them of this meeting, and I did also provide some comments on what they submitted so far. One of the things was that the restoration plan included restoring the wetlands. There was a narrative that went with that, but the plan also called for buffer zone and riverfront restoration, which wasn't detailed how that was going to be done, so I asked them to expand on that narrative.
The plan, the concern I had in looking at the plan was a really good plan, except that where the plans ended and began, where the different parcels, the road began and stopped, and, you know, this is coming out and that's coming out, so forth. And look, I'd like what's going to exist at the end plan in a different color on that, so that I can see
Easier to
what's been
see.
eliminated. Because they have all the plans on it, and it doesn't give you, doesn't tell you which ones they say it, but I don't,
Should be Xed off.
yeah, it's got to be Xed off.
Yeah, and that was one thing too, I think, besides, you know, where they said they're gonna not have any trails in your jurisdiction, so your 200-foot buffer.
Yeah.
They talked about cording off trails, I'm assuming would be outside of the 25-foot buffer, which they said they restore, so that, the rest there would just be left. How are they gonna restore that? What's the cording off mean? You know, is it just a cord? You know, so what's to prevent people from using those in the future?
Yeah.
What's, you know, is there a seed mix that can be put on there? Put some woody vegetation, you know,
Thistle.
what do you?
Yeah, we should see a plan.
As many prickers as possible.
Yeah. But
Yep.
On the public line, Russ.
That would be a good plan to put up on the screen.
You want it right now?
There is someone on the public line. I can hear
Yes, unfortunately, I was not able to access the
Oi.
meeting other than through
All
the
right.
public line. This is
Go ahead.
Jennings.
Yep.
I have another comment too.
Good evening, Commission. Russ Jennings
Oh, good Lord.
on the public line. Unfortunately, I was not able to access the meeting any other way. Evening.
Well, you're coming in really clear, Russ, so that's not bad.
You can hear me? Okay. I have a very simplistic solution for the commission. Given the information that we know, such as what Mr. Barnacle stated earlier in the meeting, that most replications succeed 30% of the time, I'm in favor of going one with a route that has already worked. And through a site visit, we could accomplish both the fact that 75% growth has already occurred over the past 2 years that the trails have not been used, and they're not being used currently. So I think that much of the restoration concerns that the commission might have would simply be answered by a site visit with your agent.
Be good to take a look at it.
So, to expedite the process, we'd be willing to have a site walk at Rebecca's convenience. And, seeing how she's going to be in close proximity to both properties, we might as well view both properties. And, we always have the open door policy. Anytime you want access to property, we've always said within 24 hours we would meet you on such. All you have to do is give us notice. So
Okay.
you can let us know.
As far as that, what back?
Oh, no, I was just going to recommend, I think it'd be efficient if, these are big properties, and these are big areas to look at, and
Yeah.
big restoration things, I think that having someone assist looking at it and verifying would be useful in this situation. That's just what I think.
Somebody to go in for us, and third party, is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yep.
I agree.
I think it is just going to be the most efficient way to get that, And maybe they can, someone who's a professional wetland scientist can verify what Mr. Jennings is saying, and maybe have some comments towards the restoration, and just do that on behalf of the commission.
Okay, sounds good. I think, I come back to, I'd like to get a clarity of the plan. The plan is clear, but what's being eliminated and what's being connected.
Right, the questions that Becky asked about,
Yeah,
what's being porting off.
Yeah, and with that in hand, I'd be glad to do a site visit with you, Beck, at Russ's convenience. I have no problem with that. And anybody else that wanted to come.
Are you saying?
Sure, just let us know when you'd be able to do such.
Yeah.
Well, I think
All right,
also,
yeah.
yeah, no, I think also too, the things I commented on earlier is that we need clarification on the additional restoration areas, what's proposed. I know he's saying that it's probably fine now, but that was part of what needed to be submitted too. But, I did reach out to a consultant just to have an idea and information. I did speak to someone who said that, and showed them the plans, that they could, do the site inspection, and provide comments to the commission. And a proposal for that, I think it would be, a day worth of field work, and then the reporting afterwards. The cost for that would have been $1,200.
That's very reasonable.
Who would be bearing the cost of that?
Obviously, she's considering it your expense, but, we aren't we're discussing here.
Oh,
We're not,
I think that we would be willing to photo document those areas by our engineers, and if you had any questions afterwards, we could supply all of that information. And if you had any questions from there, we could go from there. It's very easy to see. It's not like we brought equipment to the site and graded areas and so on and so forth. They're old logging trails that were already grown in, and they're already brushy and woodsy. So it's the regrowth of those areas is very quick and very full. And as far as quartering off those trails, just a couple dead sticks across them probably suffices, because after 2 or 3 years, it's really not a trail anymore. It's very bushy and woodsy. So, and if you went out there now, you would experience that.
all right, well, then we'll have to get back to you with a time and date when we can, when is the next?
Sure, you can let us know.
When's the next meeting?
June 15th?
Yeah, June. So,
Next meeting is the 15th.
yeah,
So it'd be next Tuesday, that would be the next site visit.
yeah.
Well, I mean, to go out and walk those properties, that's
More than a site, yeah, that's.
right, that's more than just a normal scheduled with our
I'll
site
have to,
visits.
I'm gonna
That's-
have to look at my schedule.
Yeah.
Russ, we'll have to get to you with a time when we can
Okay.
take a look at it.
Yeah.
Agree?
Yeah, agreed.
You guys are sitting back in your chairs, and that happens at my house, I know I'm in trouble.
Not you.
We don't want to drop the idea
All right.
of having a third party.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, Becky?
Well, number 20.
Number 20, 508, I'm sorry, number 20, MIPA.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think that we should stand pat with the lack of response from the state on this site, given the fact that the applicant's agent, through this process, has validated on our public record that this total project exceeds more than 25 acres, which should have triggered a MIPA review of the entire site, the entire project. And the fact that the bureaucrats have ignored our requests, I think we need to ratchet up the requests to Senator Goby and Representative Smola, and try to get them to either schedule a listening session so we can have the appropriate people in the room to listen to what our concerns are, or to just outright utilize their political influence on our behalf to get MIPA to listen and act based off of what we all believe, based on aerial photos of what's gone on at that property, to be well in excess of 75 acres of disturbance. And it certainly is in excess of the 25 acre standard that would, trigger the request for the review. So I would like to have us as a commission request support from our elected representatives in whatever fashion we can at the state level, and get this entire project reviewed.
Well, Mr. Chairman, having been in the Air Force for 4.5 years, I was pounded into me what's called a chain of command. And so I think that we should, I like your idea, but I like that idea only if EOEA, the Secretary of the Environmental Office of
Yes.
Environment and Energy, has a chance to go down to MIPA. He's the boss of MIPA, and
say, you know, I'm getting a lot of good information here, that MEPA, that you guys are not picking the ball up here. And then if he drops it, I don't know if Marty Suberg is still the secretary or not, but it's easy to find out, but. that's
Well,
what
I will defer to your experience as to what the proper channels are, but clearly we have been ignored by MEPA.
That's why we're gonna go to their boss.
So we need to ratchet this up, and we need to have the intestinal will to continue ratcheting it up until somebody wants to listen.
I agree 100%. I just think the starting point is the boss of MEPA.
Okay?
Or you could send the same letter to both ends.
Say again?
You could send the same letter to both ends. You could send the letter to the MEPA people and to their boss at the same time, because they already have not responded in the past.
Oh, right.
And just to add to what Eric was saying earlier, 4 days a week for the month of May, they have operated full tilt on the Charlton properties. 4 days a week, and masks are not required. That's number one. Number two, also at the beginning of May, the end of April, by actual photographic count, 7 gigantic 18-wheeler haulers went up Flag Road onto the Charlton property, loaded with gravel, going off to the right-hand side of their operation, which is clearly not where their 23 acres are. So they have extended the roads considerably up there. And if you go to their website and look, it is really amazing, because they have nothing. You have to go to other websites in order to access what's going on at 508.
How about if Martin Drexage with his drone, and he has an amazing camera on that thing?
Yes, he does, but you would have to be able to get somebody on the property, because it's well treed. It's treed all the way around it. What they did was hollow out the middle.
Right. Well, anyway.
All right.
But it has been very, very active.
Well, regardless of, you know, we have their agents on public record essentially validating that the 22 original acres was expanded by over 3, which gets us over 25. So we have met the threshold without question. We have our suspicions that it is far greater than that, but we have their agent representatives admitting that it pierced the threshold. So it really is immaterial that it's 25.2 acres or 250 acres.
Yeah.
Because they admitted that on the public record.
Yep.
So, I just wanted to bring the discussion up, whatever the proper next step is, you know, I have to leave to your experience and expertise on that. I'm perfectly okay with starting it with the boss of them before going to the governor. That's fine.
Experience and expertise might be a bit of an exaggeration, but still what I think. But I would have no problem of the letter going to MEPA and the Secretary of the OEA.
And the senator and the representative.
All at once?
Yeah.
You're just like, oh yeah. Just like Eric was saying in the beginning, get it out there, get everybody involved. Because so far they've been ignoring it.
Is this a follow-up letter to MEPA on our previous correspondence on the project? And we're copying EOEA, everybody else?
Well, that's a courtesy that I don't know that MEPA absolutely deserves, but sure.
I'm just asking.
Because, you know,
wanna make sure
a direct letter to the boss saying, I'm asking for some assistance with a letter that has been ignored, and, you know, is probably what is going to.
Becky, we should, that's exactly what we should do.
Okay.
Do you need an official? Make an official? A motion? You want to make a motion? Or just ready to go?
Oh, it's just to write a letter, right?
Yeah, I don't know that needs a motion. It's
Yeah.
not a public hearing.
Yeah. But nice to try to keep us legal here.
And what else do we have here?
Well, we already discussed the reconsideration procedures, and I've thought about what you said, Mr. Chair, and I'm in agreement with it, that, you know, there shouldn't be we should have the ability to.
To say, hey, you know.
Yes, adjust in real time. So, the reason why I brought it up, David, and I was wishing you were at the last meeting, I felt ill-prepared to reconsider that vote. I didn't have enough information in front of me. It was part of a committee report, so it wasn't something that I could easily access through the minutes. And there was no official recording of the vote because it was part of a committee report. So I felt like, and shame on me for not saying something in the time, that I did not have enough or appropriate opportunity to think that through. Now, it's immaterial to what's going to happen at town meeting on the 7th, right? So, at the end of the day, but that was why I brought it up.
No, I understood that, and I took that to heart. That's why I looked it up.
Yeah.
Because I really want to make sure we're on safe ground. You do know that we've now done reconsiderations twice this year, and we had not done a reconsideration in the previous 25 years that I can remember.
So it's my fault?
All right, do you have a report, Beck, or are we out of here?
No, you
We're good.
still have to have a motion from Stephen.
Are we all done with everything?
No, well,
No, I was asking,
Oh, for agent report?
Agent's report.
Yeah, I only had a few things to really mention, but just, you know, other thing, I was just gonna say, reminder of town meetings on Monday,
yeah.
so you know, and then,
Is town meeting going to be at the high school?
Yeah.
yeah. And then, Linda, who interned with us last year, she just finished her first year of college, she's back in town, so she's gonna come back this summer and help us out a little bit,
Oh, great.
yeah,
That's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you got your name in for next year yet?
No, but we're hoping we'll get the high school students back next year too, and/or this summer, anyone who's interested in, we got a big filing project to do. It's not that exciting, but we can find some exciting things for people to do too.
I have a quick question.
Scoot.
You mentioned the pilot project.
Oh, yep.
What about the one down the street? How is the restoration going of the?
Oh, apple greens? Yes, so Art just had sent in, he had a monitoring report of that.
Yeah.
So, most of it looks good, there's a lot of trash that needs to get picked up out there, silt fence needs to come down. He had a couple questions, comments about some of the plantings, I think some of them had died because they were planted late or in the middle of summer last year, that might need to be replaced. And some additional stabilization. Overall, looks pretty good. One other comment he had, and I did go out there and look at it, is there's a little bit of a sinkhole happening again, kind of in the same area where there was one before. So he sent that report, and he had copied the woman from Apple Greens, and I asked her, I mean, I need to follow up. I asked her to address his comments, to get the engineer to go look at it, and address the other comments. And there's still some knotweed, I think, that's coming up in the back basin that needs to get cleaned out too. So, and I haven't heard back from her. That was probably just a few weeks ago that Art sent that in, and yeah, they owe us a response.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the big arrows didn't 100% work.
Yeah. I was a bit shocked when that whole project actually got completed and the extent of what they cut down, and it looked much worse than what I was envisioning.
Yeah,
when they approved
yeah.
the project.
And it's too bad too, because the original plan, they called for obviously the perennial stream restoration, but then they were gonna step up and do those pools on the intermittent.
Yeah.
And it's too bad, because we were out there and they had already cut everything up there to do that work, and we were like, well, we really don't need to do that, don't change it, don't modify it, but it was already cut. I mean, they had approval to do the cutting, but.
That's what really upset me.
Yeah, it is too bad. You know, it really never probably really needed to be done in the first place, but
And just real quickly, the Hobbs Brook, the retaining wall behind
Yep.
The plaza there, how's that work coming?
So I'm actually going there tomorrow, and I'm not going there for that, but I'll look at that. So they've been trying to get a contractor to do the restoration work. The wall's done.
Okay.
The wall's been done. And they put it out to bid to get a contractor to come in and do the plantings. And, right after they put it out to bid, I don't know who brought up the issue, but they are proposing to plant trees, probably one of the landscapers, right on top of the wall. Remember we talked about that?
Right.
Maybe it's not the best idea, and it's what they proposed. So they asked, they're like, well, can we switch those trees out right there for some shrubs or something? Well, they just asked to take that away, and I said, no.
No.
And I said, you can switch it out for something. I said, we had that comment initially that you probably don't want trees right up against the wall again. So they did that, and they had to put it out to bid. And they're supposed to be getting it done. And I told them, I'm like, you're supposed to get it done this spring.
Right.
And then, have it established by the end of the growing season. I think they thought it read that they had to the end of the growing season. I was like, no, it's this spring to get it established. I said, the sooner you get it done now, the better than you're planting it in dry summer.
Right.
Because you gotta water and all that. But I'm actually going there tomorrow to walk the solar site, because they did the culvert replacements, and they're done their monitoring for that, so I'm going to walk that. And they'll be submitting a request for certificate of compliance, I think, for that, so.
Okay.
That one's a long time in the coming.
Why are you doing quick updates? How about the mobile station?
That's what we were talking about, apple greens.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about.
That's my first
the one over
question.
Hobbs Brook.
That was the second one.
That was the second one, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Actually, you say a long time coming, I'm amazed they did it. I'm amazed they came and did it.
That they got it done?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just mean it's been.
I'm a real cynic when it comes to.
Yeah, but another
Big-
sinkhole?
What?
Another sinkhole.
No, he's talking about the solar.
Stones.
Oh.
The big stones in the back, yeah.
Mr. Chair, make a motion, we adjourn.
I mean, second.
Salute. In favor. Eric Gaspar.
Steve Christie.
We did it, guys.
All right.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh, Glenn's still there.
I didn't know, I was